Not too bad in the way of sunshine as well for parts of central Scotland, again, that sort of Argyll and Bute Highlands area. But the central swathe of the UK is going to see persistent cloud and rain throughout all of Sunday as well. Disappointing once again, unfortunately. Bye-bye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
£30,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours. It's our biggest cash prize of the year so far, and you could be getting that winning call from us to tell you that you're our next Great British Giveaway winner.
Oh, I can't believe this.
Oh my God, this is amazing.
That is absolutely fantastic.
We're over the moon.
I've never won anything like this in my life.
Oh, you shocked me. I never won a penny in my life.
If I was there, I'd buy you a drink.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Bev Turner. Thank you for joining us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark Dolan and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome to GB News Saturday. Hope you're having a wonderful weekend out then. It's a big one as well, isn't it? I'm Dawn Neeson and for the next 3 hours I'll be keeping you company on telly, online and on digital radio. Keeping you up to date on the stories that really matter to you. We've got a cracking, really packed show coming up so you don't want to go anywhere. Right, starting off with early releases under Labour as prison overcrowding is blamed for drastic measures. The Justice Secretary has announced that some prisoners, including violent ones, which they said wouldn't happen, could be released after serving just 40% of their sentence. Are Britain's streets about to become even more unsafe? And royal return with the news that the Princess of Wales will be returning to Wimbledon for the final. And as America has once seemingly gone quiet on Harry and Meghan, are we seeing a royal revival in fortunes for the royal family? And I think there might be a little football game coming over this weekend, not quite sure. Gareth Southgate says his team are ready to make history after reaching the final of Euro 2024. But can the Three Lions beat Spain tomorrow night and become European champions? But this show is nothing without you and your views. It's not about me, it's not about my brilliant guests. We've got some great ones coming up. It's all about you and your views. So let me know your thoughts on all the stories we'll be discussing today, or anything just around the gossip about, basically. Really simple, she says, trying to remember it. Visit gbnews.com/yoursay, I did it, and join the conversation, or even easier, message me on our socials at GB News. But first, it's time for the news headlines with Sophia Wenzer.
Dawn, thank you. Good afternoon from the GB Newsroom. It's just gone 12 o'clock. Your top story this hour. A 34-year-old man has now been arrested in connection with the investigation into human remains found in 2 suitcases near Clifton Suspension Bridge. Armed police detained the man at Bristol Templemead Station, and he will be taken to London for questioning later. There had been a manhunt in the wake of the discovery of body parts, but police are now not looking for anyone else in connection with the incident. Investigators believe the remains found at an address in Shepherd's Bush are linked to those found in 2 suitcases in Bristol on Wednesday. The family of 3 women who were killed in a crossbow attack in Hertfordshire this week have said they are devastated. BBC commentator John Hunt and his daughter Amy issued a statement after the murders of 61-year-old Carol Hunt and her 2 daughters, 25-year-old Louise and Hannah, who's 28, who were attacked at their home in Bushey. It comes as a 26-year-old man has now been arrested on suspicion of the murders. In the US, President Joe Biden has confirmed he's going to stay as a Democratic candidate for the upcoming election. It comes as top Democratic donors have threatened to withhold around £70 million of campaign funds if Joe Biden isn't replaced as a candidate after more blunders at the NATO summit. Speaking at a campaign rally in Detroit, Biden told his supporters that not only will he run, but he will also win the presidency once again.
You probably noticed there's a lot of speculation lately. What's Joe Biden going to do? Is he going to stay in the race? Is he going to drop out? Here's my answer. I am running, and we're going to win. I'm not going to change that.
But Professor of US Politics Scott Lucas has told GB News most Democrats want Biden to step down.
Some Democrat donors have already said they will not provide money to the campaign until the situation is resolved. In other words, until Biden steps down. You've mentioned those that have now said that they are planning to do so, but the Democrats are already losing some funds. And I think what you're going to see this weekend is, there's going to be a review by those high up in the Democratic Party of where they are in the financial situation. They're going to review the polling, which actually shows that Biden and Trump are still running neck to neck, but that a majority of Democrats do want Biden to step aside, and they're going to look at Biden's performance.
Meanwhile, Elon Musk has reportedly donated to a political group working to elect Donald Trump as president. According to Bloomberg, the amount was not known, but it was a sizable amount given to a group called America PAC. The Tesla founder, Mr. Musk, has not responded to these reports. Meanwhile, Biden campaign spokesman James Singer has accused Musk of knowing Trump is a sucker who will sell America out, cutting his taxes while raising taxes on the middle classes. Alec Baldwin's manslaughter case has been dismissed by a judge nearly 3 years on from the death of Helena Hutchins on the set of the Western film Rust in New Mexico. The cinematographer, Helena, was shot with a revolver that Mr. Baldwin was using in rehearsals in 2021. The trial collapsed 3 days into Baldwin's trial in Santa Fe. It is the second time the case against the actor has been dismissed, and he will not be tried again. The US actor broke down in tears as a New Mexico judge dismissed the involuntary manslaughter case against him.
The sanction of dismissal is the only warranted remedy. The jury has been sworn, jeopardy has attached, and a mistrial would not be based upon manifest necessity. Further, the sanction of dismissal is warranted in this case.
In other news, England manager Gareth Southgate has admitted he wants England to win so much on Sunday it hurts as they face Spain in the Euros 2024 showdown. They've reached the tournament's final for the second time in a row after being beaten by Italy on penalties at Wembley in 2021. Ahead of tomorrow's match, the King has asked England's squad to alleviate the blood pressure of the nation by avoiding any late drama in the final. The Princess of Wales will attend the Wimbledon men's singles final tomorrow and present the trophy. It will be her second public appearance since her cancer diagnosis was announced earlier this year, after she attended Trooping the Colour last month. Kate has been a patron of the All England Lawn Tennis and Croquet Club since 2016. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Wensler, more in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Sophia. And we're off to a cracking start. I just want to give a shout out to Peter Harrison, first of all. Peter, thank you so much for getting in touch. Dawn Neeson again. Are you sure you're not my husband actually messaging in? And meanwhile, on the subject of football, you're going already. Left is losing it, whoever you are, hello. Thank God nobody's singing that awful Frank Skinner song about football coming home. Always tempting fate. Don't get me started. Might be doing that later on. Stay tuned. Right, now let's get straight into today's story, shall we? The government has said some violent criminals will be released from prison early in an attempt to tackle overcrowding. Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood has announced the scheme to release thousands of prisoners early to avoid a total breakdown of law and order. This comes as former Home Secretary Suella Braverman said Labour is putting the public at risk with this new scheme, which, if I remember rightly, was kind of a Conservative scheme originally, but in any case. Joining me now is GB News political correspondent Catherine Forster to explain... Oh, Catherine. Explain exactly what is going on with this scheme. Catherine, lovely to see you, even though you are under an umbrella. No surprise, it's the British summertime. Catherine, initially we were told that this scheme wouldn't involve violent prisoners. Now some lower-level violent prisoners might be released. What's going on with this?
Yes, good afternoon, Dawn. Very worrying indeed, this, isn't it? And the Justice Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, admits that there is risk attached. So yesterday, when this story first broke, we heard that the government was preparing to release people when they'd served 40% of their sentence, as opposed to 50% as it currently is. They're looking at releasing up to 5,000 prisoners early this year, and the scheme likely to go on for 18 months. Now, initially they said, you know, don't worry, violent criminals won't be released, etc. But that's now been clarified. So while nobody serving a sentence over 4 years for very serious violent crimes will be released, people serving sentences under 4 years for violent crimes, including things like assault, burglary, knife crimes and firearms offences, some of those people will be eligible. Now, of course, their cases will have to be reviewed individually, will be subject to probation services, etc., etc. But the probation service itself is already, to be honest, on its knees, because the whole criminal justice system has been neglected, frankly, for a very, very long time, because it's not something that the public mostly concern themselves much with, unlike things like education, like the NHS. So, you know, the cuts that happened during austerity did hit it particularly hard, and now we have come to breaking point. Now, Shabana Mahmood saying that this is the only way to avert disaster, and basically if they don't release people early to make spaces in the jails, there's only about 700 spaces left for men in England and Wales prisons now. She says that then people would have to be put in police cells, and then that would stop courts being able to process cases because they wouldn't have anywhere to put them. It would stop police ultimately arresting people for crimes because they wouldn't have anywhere to put them. So, to be honest, it's all an incredible and very, very serious mess, but the government are insisting, really, that they don't have any choice.
Catherine, this was a Conservative policy originally, if I remember rightly, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. The previous government, back under Rishi Sunak, were already releasing prisoners earlier, early from their sentences, but not quite as early as this. And of course, it was on the Conservatives' watch under the last 14 years that all this has come to a head. But it's come to sort of bursting point, if you like, unfortunately for the new administration, just over a week after Sir Keir Starmer became Prime Minister. But certainly there's a lot of blame flying around, and Labour, as you would expect, laying it 100% at the door of the Conservative. Shabana Mahmood has said this is the most disgraceful dereliction of duty I have ever known. So very, very worrying. And worth saying too that both the prisons watchdog and the probation's watchdog have warned about this. Charlie Taylor, who's the Chief Inspector of Prisons, says that prisons are at a critical point. So there seems to be no good option at this point.
Catherine Forster, thank you very much for trying to explain what is actually quite an incredibly complicated story, and just feel a bit like a sticking plaster to plaster over a problem that's been going on a long time. Catherine, thank you very much, and hope you get dry soon. Now, let's see what my panel make of this. This hour, I'm joined by the co-founder of Novara Media, Michael Walker, and the former Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Ben Habib. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me on a Saturday afternoon. Really appreciate your company. Now, this story has been around for a few days now. Front page of the Daily Mail today with the headline, "Looters could run amok if we don't release prisoners now." Michael, originally, we know it was a Tory policy, first of all. Labour had to pick up and run with it. And they are pushing it forward very fast. I mean, they've hit the ground running in one way. But what I'm not hearing here is what is going to happen to the victims? How is the probation service going to work with these sudden release of prisoners who, as we learned today, some of them may be violent?
Well, so I want to push back just ever so slightly on something you said, which is that this is very complicated. Because on one level, this is incredibly simple, right? The Tories were putting more people in prison and they weren't building more prison spaces. And for years, everyone has looked at these lines which showed prisoners going up, prison spaces not going up, right? And the Prison Governors Association, everyone has known about this. Everyone's been warning about this. Labour get into power, they're like, oh yeah, the two lines have met now, right? We don't have any more spaces in prisons. And I think Suella Braverman's line, which is to say, oh, this is very irresponsible from the Labour Party, is just so dishonest, because she was literally the Home Secretary while this was happening. Some Tories have been a bit more honest. So Alex Chalk, who was the Justice Secretary until last week, of course, he's spoken to the BBC and said we would have done exactly the same thing. This was inevitable. He's also saying that actually we should put less people in prison, so he's sounding quite liberal on this. But yeah, the causes of this are simple, let's say, which is that we put more prisoners in prison than we have spaces. As for the solutions, obviously it's not ideal. I mean, in terms of public safety, we probably do need to have some perspective on this, because these are all people who've been sent to prison for less than 4 years, as far as I understand.
Yes, yeah.
Now, so it was the case that they were already eligible to be released after 50% of their term, so that's after 2 years. It's going down to 40%, which means that people who would have been let out after 2 years are now going to be let out after, I suppose, 20 months. Now, that's not a huge difference, right, in terms of how safe the public are going to be. If someone gets let out now or in 4 months' time, the difference isn't huge. So I suppose that...
It might be huge if you're the victim of that particular crime, though.
Well, I think if you're the victim of that crime, you're going to be equally upset about them coming out in 4 months' time, right? So I think absolutely we need to have the sort of the perspective of the victims here. But I think there is a more fundamental issue, which is that our probation service is completely broken. Whether we let these people out now or whether we let them out in 4 months' time, it's clear that our prisons aren't in a situation where they're rehabilitating even the most minor offenders, and they're not keeping track of people once they've been let out. I mean, partly privatising the probation service was another huge mistake that the Tories made, which is now a crisis that the Labour Party are going to have to mop up.
Ben, coming to you, do you think this will... I mean, as I said, it was a Tory policy, Labour have picked up and run with it, and it's happening faster than anyone expected, but do you think this will put the public at risk?
It can't be good for the public, can it? I mean, you know, releasing people who've been convicted of violent criminal acts, no matter what the sentencing was, you know, these are people who are criminals and they've been put away for a good reason. And we've got to bear in mind that only 2% of violent crimes actually result in a conviction. You know, only 7% are ever apprehended. Only half of that 7% result in a charge being brought. And then only 2% of the total 100% of crimes committed results in someone going to jail. So one of the problems I think we're facing in this country is the legitimization of certain... I'm slightly digressing, but the effective legitimization of certain criminal acts as a result of the pressure on the criminal justice system. So, for example, the creation of the term petty crime, which basically allows the police to turn its back on enforcing the law where petty crime is concerned. And that, in my view, has encouraged a lot of people into criminality because they sense that they won't be caught, they won't even be investigated for a petty crime. And so that encourages people into the system. If you then take away retribution, if you take away the threat of what might happen with criminal activity, assuming you are convicted, actually you're just making it even more less risky. You're making it much less risky for criminals. And there's more encouragement. And it was interesting, Catherine saying this isn't a big issue in the country. Actually, you know, I've now fought far too many elections this year. I've done a by-election and the local elections and the general election. It is an issue on every doorstep, particularly knife crime. People are really worried about it. But it's, you know, knife crime is a symptom of all other criminality as well. Weed. You know, you can smell weed everywhere you go nowadays on the streets of London and Wellingborough and Rushden, where I was standing, and other places. You see syringes being dropped all over the place. Millions of barbershops, which made, I think, Emily Maitlis turn her eyebrows went up when Reform UK mentioned the emergence of multiplicity of barbershops. But the point about barbershops is that not that we've got anything against barbers, it's because it's a cash business and you can launder drug money through, you know, these barbershops. And so we're seeing a breakdown, actually, I think, Dawn, of the criminal justice system. And this is yet another step in that direction. And I completely agree with you, Michael. We've seen the rise in the numbers going to jail. Why haven't we been ahead of this game? There are about 95 to 100,000 people in jail. It's not that big a number. We can have more jails. You know, it's not beyond us to be able to build another 10,000 cells somewhere. You know, we should be able to do it. We've got redundant Air Force bases that are now being handed over to...
I was going to mention that because it was discussed using these to house migrants initially rather than using hotels.
And they are being used to house migrants. Weathersfield Air Base, for example, is being used to house migrants,
So is that an option, maybe, Michael, for housing the overflow of prisoners until we get the system up and running and build more prisons, which we can't do overnight, obviously?
So I think the problem here is, if you're looking at... So they're saying they're excluding sexual crimes and serious violent crimes. Now, I think we probably need to be clear about what actually is a not serious violent crime. But one thing you don't want to do, and what Shabana Mahmood was talking about yesterday, is how dangerous an overcrowded prison is. So a prison which is already at its capacity limit, which is purpose-built as a prison, is quite dangerous. You can potentially have riots. I mean, there's already huge drug problems in prisons. So what we don't want to be doing is putting people who have committed... Now, I know no crime is minor if you're the victim, but a crime where we think they are probably someone who can be rehabilitated, you know, maybe they made a mistake, these do exist. We don't want to be sending them to somewhere which is incredibly overcrowded, which is incredibly dangerous, and where not only are they, you know, might be at a risk to their life, but also getting caught up in something. So if we end up warehousing loads of people who've committed minor crimes in places which are completely unsuitable for people, I think that could have some, you know, problems that come with it, let's say.
There doesn't seem to be an ideal solution. Someone has just... sorry, forgive me, I've lost your name, but suggested that the foreign prisoners we have in our jails at the moment, why don't we just deport them? That would solve a lot of the overcrowding. What do you make to that, Ben?
Well, I mean, you've got to have a place to which to deport them, first of all. You've got to have an agreement with that country to take them back. That country will probably require us to pay money, good money, in order to take them back.
We're quite used to doing that, to be fair.
Yeah, we've done that with Albania. We were paying Albania, I think, £40,000 per Albanian that we sent back to Albania who'd been convicted in the United Kingdom, which is about, I think, £10,000 a year less than what it costs us to keep a prisoner in UK jails. You know, it's vastly expensive putting people behind bars.
Yes.
The other huge group of people who are in jail at the moment is people on remand. So it's people who literally just waiting for their court case. I think there's about 16,000, somewhere between 12 and 16,000 people currently in prison because they're waiting to have their case heard.
The whole system is...
It's crumbling.
Yeah.
And it's an issue, because if the criminal justice system is seen not to be working, you create more crime. And if you create more crime, you're in a vicious circle out of which you can't get.
The headline of the Daily Mail today. We're running out of time on that one, unfortunately, talking of time. But for all the best analysis and opinion on that story and so much more, please do go to our website, which is at gbnews.com. I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News Saturday, and there's loads more coming up on today's show. Yeah, it's football. Sorry for those of you complaining. Can the Three Lions make history and beat Spain tomorrow night and be crowned European champions? All of that and much more to come, and I'm promising not to sing It's Coming Home, although I might. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. Don't go too far.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
The Royal Academy's annual exhibition has returned for the 256th time to brighten the summer holidays. It's the world's oldest open submission exhibition. Anyone can enter work to be considered for inclusion. I'm joined now by art critic J.J. Charlesworth for his verdict. What is your verdict?
My verdict is you should go and see it. You are confronted with many things of varying quality, selected by artists, and you very much, instead of being given something to you that's supposed to be good, you have to make your own decision.
I went along yesterday, and I personally did see some pictures on the wall that I thought were absolutely stunning. I'm going to mention Peter Ucker, which I think is a remark. And now these are the two by Ben Jonson. Grundtvig 1, and we've got one coming out of Berlin Pool. I think that's an absolutely stunning piece of work. And then Claire Douglas should be up. Here we are, Claire Douglas.
Yes.
Souvenir from the Anthropocene.
Yeah.
That last one, actually, a very witty painting.
A piece like that was really interesting. I think it caught a lot of people's eye because it had very kind of humorous, slightly bleak take on post-Brexit Britain. It's set in this fictitious world of Brummington, which is a sort of loose satire on Birmingham. I thought it was a bit mean.
I think we had maybe Black Lives Matter. We had Boris Johnson. I think our own Jacob Rees-Mogg made his way into the painting.
Yeah, so there's definitely a slant, a political slant, on the part of the artist. But even that said, I thought it was an interesting and enjoyable work, even though maybe you don't agree with the artist on what they're trying to say. And I think that actually made for an interesting moment because you're seeing that people are disagreeing, right? Both through the artwork and in front of artworks.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Hello and welcome back to GB News Saturday with me, Dawn Neeson, on your TV, online and on digital radio. Now, someone's just called it kiss ball. It's football. I know what you mean, but come on, every 58 years, maybe we're making the most of it. Now, manager Gareth Southgate says his team are ready to make history after reaching the final of Euro 2024. A stunning stoppage-time goal from substitute Ollie Watkins secured a 2-1 victory over the Netherlands in dramatic fashion this week. The Three Lions now face Spain tomorrow with the hope of being crowned European championships. Good luck with that one, boys. Joining me now is GB News reporter Jack Carlson, who is live in Berlin for us. Jack, hello. How's it going out there?
Well, do you know, it's been such a good atmosphere here, Dawn, all morning as England fans start to come and take their pictures here in front of the Brandenburg Gate. But shall we find out how one of them's feeling anyway, shall we? We're going to come talk to Adam from Radlett, I believe. So how are you feeling ahead of this final?
It's been 58 years, isn't it? I mean, not overly confident, but it's coming home.
Yeah, I mean, tell us the story. I mean, why come to the final? Why come to Berlin?
I actually went to Marbella for my mate Loz Newman's 50th. Loz, happy birthday, son, last weekend, and I haven't been home since. So the plan was to go home on Monday after a little party in Marbella, but it was unmissable. It just had to come. You know, it's an occasion that you can't really miss. So I went to Düsseldorf, went to Dortmund, obviously, for the semis, and ended up staying out here and found myself in Berlin at Brandenburg Gate. Going home now on Tuesday because it's possible to get a flight on Monday.
I'll put you into a score prediction.
Score prediction, I've got to go with my heart, haven't I? I'm going to go 2-1 England. Harry Kane, last-minute winner.
All right, well, that'll be
on the pitch.
That'll be nice. Adam, thank you very much for joining us. Of course, we're also here with Chris Scudder. He's almost tripping me up. Chris, I mean, you know, here we are, you know, right in front of Brandenburg Gate. I mean, this is quite the occasion, isn't it, for this final?
Yeah, I hear all the stories already of people travelling. I mean, it's been so hard to get here by plane or by train, especially for the people who are coming late. And a lot of driving over now. It's about a 10-hour drive, I think, from Calais. So. But people just want to be here. And just to give it a bit of context historically, we remember when Football's Coming Home came out, 1996, Gaza and all that. And in England, the Germans won it and were singing Fußball's Coming Home. And that really hurt for an Englishman. So here we are, 28 years later, and football's coming home. We've got everything crossed, and wouldn't it be great to see it in Germany, because they've been sort of not happy the way England have sort of how they consider to be scraping through the tournament. But here we are. You know, it doesn't matter how you do it. You're here, and to win it in front of the Brandenburg Gate tomorrow night would be incredible. There are probably about 20,000 England fans here. 30,000 probably in the stadium. I think we'll outnumber the Spanish.
It was a bit of a different story in Dortmund, wasn't it? But you know, we got some of the Spanish and whatever. You know, so we got some of the Spanish, of course, that have been coming here to get their photos, and you know, in front of these such historic things. So you know, like you say, it's going to be a very different story compared to Dortmund, where the Dutch, you know, had 110,000 here. We could well outnumber the Spanish, and hopefully that will make it even better atmosphere.
That was a really weird one in Dortmund, because a lot of the England fans were staying in Düsseldorf and Bochum and Cologne, and didn't watch the match. The ones who didn't get in the stadium in Dortmund, but I think it'll be different here. They'll come and just flood this. There's a huge fan zone here, and as I say, you know, to see that trophy lifted in right in front, just down the road from the Reichstag and by the Brandenburg Gate would be just amazing, wouldn't it? But you know, it's going to be tight, I think. So you know, Spain have got some great players, but I think we have the momentum. That's probably the right way of putting it.
It's Gareth Southgate's talks, doesn't he, about growing into this tournament? So fingers crossed, you know, he can say the right things to those in the dressing room. But Chris, for now, thank you very much. You'll be with us, of course, all afternoon. Thanks to Adam earlier as well, that England fan, to get the picture here on the ground in Berlin.
Thank you very much, Jack. Jack Carson for us live in Berlin, and Jack will be joining us throughout the rest of the programme to bring us up to date. And the last time I saw him, he was hoisted on someone's shoulders, looking very uncomfortable as well. So, Jack, I expect that next time round as well. Thank you very much, Jack. Now, joining me now is our reporter, Anna Riley. And Anna, lovely to see you. Where are you today exactly?
We're in Rainy Hull at the moment. We are at Pelican Park Community Trust. It's a charity that caters for sports for all ages, but this morning football has been the game of choice. We've had young people, teams between the ages of 16 and 12, under 10s, and even some really little ones as well. So it's been fantastic. And I'm joined by Jan Hornby. She's the trustee here. And we've been talking earlier, haven't we, just about how much the Euros have inspired youngsters here in their football.
Yeah, well, we've been running an academy now on a Saturday morning for many, many months. But just this last couple of weeks, we've noticed the numbers have gone up. Not particularly of the 12, 13 and 14-year-olds, but the little 6, 7, 8, 9-year-olds. So it's obviously something's happening. Obviously, everyone's got Euro final fever. Yeah, absolutely. And all want to play football and be the next Harry Kane or
Hello there, welcome to your GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Quite a mixed picture on the cards in terms of our weather this weekend. Disappointing for some of us, but a few brighter spells possible, particularly further towards the west where we do have high pressure, keeping things a touch more settled. But for those in the east, it is low pressure in the North Sea that is providing more unsettled conditions. A lot of cloud coming in with this, outbreaks of rain and drizzle. A very dull, damp and dreary Saturday for many of us here. Those brighter spells possible further towards the west, but sunshine still really at a premium for many of us, and that is going to factor in with the temperatures. Very disappointing. 13, 14 degrees Celsius for some of us is well below where we normally expect to be for the middle of July. Might just scrape 19 or 20 degrees across areas of the south and southwest. That area of cloud and rain is going to be quite persistent. Eastern areas of Scotland, very cloudy throughout Saturday, but further towards the Highlands, parts of Argyll and Bute again, seeing the best of some of that sunshine in there. A few showers possible with those bright spells for Northern Ireland. They could be on the sharp side around at times, and as well a few showers also possible for Wales, parts of southern England, perhaps the odd rumble of thunder around in there as well. Those showers tending to ease off as we head into this evening and overnight. And actually for southern areas of Wales and England, the cloud will break up a bit more as well. A few mist and fog patches possible here, but it is going to remain very cloudy, damp and soggy for northern areas of England, southern Scotland, with that rain really persisting, turning heavy at times, maybe some localised flooding issues in one or two places. That cloud, though, will help hold the temperatures up. Most of us in double-digit figures overnight, might just drop into single figures in some rural spots underneath those clearer skies in the south. And it is here that we'll have the best of the sunshine first thing on Sunday. Not too bad of a start before some of that cloud builds in again, and not too bad in the way of sunshine as well for parts of central Scotland. Again, that sort of Argyll and Bute Highlands area. But the central swathe of the UK is going to see persistent cloud and rain throughout all of Sunday as well. Disappointing once again, unfortunately. Bye-bye.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB newsroom. Your headlines just after 12:30. A 34-year-old man has now been arrested in connection with the investigation into human remains found in 2 suitcases near Clifton Suspension Bridge. Armed police detain the man at Bristol Templemead station and he will be taken to London for questioning later. There had been a manhunt in the wake of the discovery of body parts, but police are now not looking for anyone else in connection with the incident. Investigators believe the remains found at an address in Shepherd's Bush are linked to those found in 2 suitcases in Bristol on Wednesday. The family of 3 women who were killed in a crossbow attack in Hertfordshire this week have said they are devastated. John Hunt and his daughter Amy issued a statement after the murders of 61-year-old Carol Hunt and her 2 daughters, 25-year-old Louise and Hannah, who's 28, who were attacked at their home in Bushey. It comes as a 26-year-old man has now been arrested on suspicion of the murders. In other news, the Prince of Wales has said he is so proud of England ahead of the Euros 2024 final against Spain tomorrow. They've reached the tournament's final for the 2nd time in a row after being beaten by Italy on penalties at Wembley in 2021. Ahead of tomorrow's match, Prince William added, "Go out there and show the world what you're made of. We believe." And the Princess of Wales will attend the Wimbledon men's singles final tomorrow and present the trophy. It will be her 2nd public appearance since her cancer diagnosis was announced earlier this year after she attended Trooping the Colour last month. Princess Catherine has been a patron of the All England Lawn Tennis and Croquet Club since 2016. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Wensler, more in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sophia. Welcome back to GB News Saturday. Me, Dawn Neeson, on your TV, online and on digital radio. Now, we are still talking football. I know, I'm sorry, but come on. And we are joining our reporter, Will Hollis, in Cambridgeshire. Hello, good afternoon, Will. What's happening where you are today?
Yes, good afternoon. We've changed location today. We're now in Mansfield, which some people have called the Berlin of the Midlands, and we're here because this is one of the places where a fan zone has erupted as England took on the Netherlands just a few days ago, and it was that win and celebrations in pubs like this that have created this massive buzz around Britain. There really are only 3 places that you can watch the football: over in Berlin, and if you're not already on your way there or celebrating at the Brandenburg Gate, then it's probably too late for that. Sitting at home with your family, watching it on a small screen with a selection of peanuts, or by coming down to fan zones and pubs like the Swan here in Mansfield. The effect on pubs has been massive. This Euros has brought in around millions of pounds, an additional 20% boost on game days. This particular final, though, Hospitality UK estimates it will bring in £120 million to the hospitality sector just from the game against Spain on Sunday. Kate Nichols, the CEO of Hospitality UK, says it's going to be a momentous day and that pubs will be packed out to the rafters. And we know that our pubs, after desperate years of decline, really do need that support. So while it might cost a bit more than it used to come and have a drink at a pub, there is still an incredible atmosphere and lots of people will be cheering on the 3 Lions. All that needs to happen now is England needs to bring it home.
Well, I mean, this is going to be a huge... I mean, we're getting a few comments saying, oh, my God, you're talking about football. Well, I mean, it doesn't happen that often, and it's going to be a huge boost to the economy. £2.4 billion boost for the UK economy. So it is a good thing to happen to the country, isn't it?
Yes, it's a lot of wonga, isn't it? And we need it because we know how difficult it has been recently. But more money in the coffers means more pubs can stay open. It means that more people can get together and have a community spirit all year round, not just when the football is on. But we know how big the football is for bringing the nation together. Right now, I'm here in a part of the Swan pub that will be completely packed on Sunday. They've let me in early, but the rest of the pub is full of people. A lot of people wearing England shirts as well, because they're getting into the spirit already. Because this gap between Netherlands and Spain, these 2 games, it is a few days, but it keeps people excited and it keeps people connected.
Brilliant. That's Will Hollis there, who's been allowed into a pub early, and that's his excuse, and he's sticking to it. Will, thank you very much. We'll be talking to you later on during the programme. And now, another sport completely. The time is edging closer to the torchlighting of the 2024 Paris Olympic Games. In the build-up and during the Games, we on GB News are going to be chatting to athletes about their experiences and what we can expect from Team GB this year. This week, we're delighted to be joined by Olympic gymnast Lisa Mason. Lisa was the first British gymnast to make finals in European and World Championships and help Great Britain take the first ever full team to Olympic Games. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it, and looking fantastic, if I may say so. So you competed in the year 2000, was it? Yeah, and what? Just paint a little picture for us of what it's actually like to compete in the Olympic Games.
I mean, when you walk into the Olympic Village, it can be very surreal. It's like this, you know, fairy tale kind of village there. Everyone's there, spirits are high. I think we got more excited with the fact that we had, you know, 24-hour free McDonald's when we... well.
Very healthy.
Yeah, Coca-Cola. But, I mean, everyone's there because you're literally surrounded by the best athletes in the world, you know, and I actually read a statistic the other day that the chances of you becoming an Olympian are 0.003%. So you get there, it is surreal, but I mean, everyone's energy is just contagious. You're excited, the nerves are there, but you know, this is the biggest competition in any sport. You know, so to be there is a privilege in itself.
And to have the eyes of the world on you, I mean, it's such a momentous occasion, and we're all looking forward to it in Paris this year. I mean, what's it like for you, someone who's been there, and this is you, we're seeing you now. Oh, my golly gosh.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
And that was after a McDonald's.
I know, right? What's it like now for you with the Olympics coming up and you know, remembering what you achieved? What's it like watching now the youngsters are following in your footsteps?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's come a long way. I mean, the equipment has changed slightly as well. It's a lot softer and a lot more bouncy than it was in my day. But watching it, I think we get excited because we have come so far, especially in my sport, in gymnastics. You know, as you said earlier, we were the first team to ever qualify a whole team for the Olympics. We'd never done that. Now our girls are out here getting medals. You know, and that's an amazing thing. So the team that we're sending is quite a young team. We have one vet there, but I just think that they can do amazing. I'm so excited, and I think every gymnast or every athlete can relate to when the Olympics comes out. We all think that we can, you know, do our old sport again. We sit there in the gym like, let me do handstand.
Yeah, now quite a few men at the moment of a certain age who are sort of like talking about the foot. I could do better than that, and with a beer and a burger sitting on the sofa. I could do better than that.
Right.
But it's very, I mean, all sport is inspirational for the younger generations. I mean, especially this year, we have got the Euros, obviously we've got the Olympics coming up. I mean, what would your message be to youngsters now who are wanting to get into it, wanting to compete, are inspired by what athletes like yourself have done and what our young footballers are doing?
I say, you know, I would say go out and try everything, because sometimes, especially if you're coming from a background where you're not really encouraged much, you know, there's a lot of kids out there that are fighters and they're naturally talented and no one's really there praising them. And I think if you've got the opportunity to go to a free club, because even now there are so many sporting clubs that are available to lower income families as well, which is amazing. Just try things, try different things. It might be something that you could be like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that. But once you get it, you get it. And, you know, we all know exercise is great for all of us. It makes us happy, so...
Well, it's the endorphins, isn't it? I mean, Ben's looking slightly dubious at me there.
No, I completely agree. I completely agree.
Ben, it's an inspiring time for sport, isn't it, this summer? We have, as I said, we've got the Euros, we've got the Olympics coming up.
I love it when we get these spates of sporting events. You become a kind of adrenaline junkie watching England, keeping you on the edge of your seat. Are they going to come through? You know, we travel in hope and often arrive disappointed. But I love it. And you get an equally big sort of anticlimax when the sporting events end. Do you know what I mean? You go, well, what am I going to do this afternoon? Because it's all ended. But you know, I think it's great. It's great for youngsters. The 2012 Olympics in the United Kingdom, I think, did a huge amount for sporting intent and, you know, aspiration. And sport, I did a bit of sport when I was, not to your level, not to your level, but a bit of sport. And one of the great things about being in a team is that you learn teamwork, you learn to pull together. It is aspirational, you have targets, you have to be disciplined in order to meet those targets. You know, it's a fantastic life experience. So I think it's terrific that people like you not just succeed in sport, but then go on to advocate for it and, you know, fly the flag. I think it's terrific,
Michael, I mean, it is important that we get youngsters involved in sport. I mean, so many of them, especially young women. There's a report recently that so many young women give up all sport when they're 13 years old because they think it's not feminine. So, I mean, you know, it's the message to get involved in sport, which is good for every part of you, mentally and physically.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, also, I like these international tournaments because I like a shared experience, you know. I like it when the whole nation is watching the same programme on television. You know, whether that be... you know, Love Island, X Factor, or the football. You know, so it's quite nice that we're all doing the same thing for an evening. But
I've never watched Love Island.
You've never watched Love Island? Oh, you're not a true patriot.
It's a guilty pleasure. Come on, we know that. But, I mean, should there be better facilities for youngsters in this country to get in sport? I mean, we just don't... It doesn't seem that easy for youngsters, you know, especially from poorer backgrounds.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think this was one of the sort of short-sighted elements of austerity, which was to sort of say, oh, anything that's not 100% necessary will get rid of it. And especially because local authorities are under loads of pressure at the moment because they've got these statutory requirements, which is that they have to provide social care, they have to provide, care for children who are having mental health difficulties. And that means all the things that get cut are the extras. And the extras are things like the tennis court or the gymnasium.
It's true.
Yeah. Lisa, finally, we're running out of time, unfortunately. I know it's not your sport, but football. How's England going to do?
I mean, I'm backing them all the way. I'm excited. I'm not sure where I'm watching it yet. But you know what? It's such a young team and they have just done amazing. And regardless of the outcome, you've really got to give them a round of applause because they have been doing it. Unless the penalties, they've already proved themselves.
We can do penalties.
Yes.
We can do penalties.
Yes,
brilliant. That's Lisa Mason. Thank you very much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. And if you are thinking of getting involved, get out there and do it. Don't sit on your sofa. Never a better time to get out there and do it, no matter what your sport is. I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News Saturday. There's lots more coming up on today's really packed show. Can the Three Lions make history and beat Spain tomorrow night and be crowned champions of Europe? We have a former England player talking about England's chances. All of that and much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. Don't go too far.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Khloe Kardashian has come under fire after posting a picture of her 6-year-old daughter wearing a full face of makeup.
Yeah, the reality TV star said the youngster was participating in a dance recital and that wasn't an everyday occurrence.
So this morning we're asking, is it ever OK to let children wear makeup?
Well, joining us now is journalist Julie Cook. So, Julie, it's a child wearing full rouge, bright red lipstick, hair tied back, looking very, very stylised, very much, I think, like a young adult. Is this really the sort of thing we should be doing with small children?
Oh, I think it's absolutely fine. I mean, first of all, in Khloe Kardashian's case, it was a dance recital, so it was very much a kind of performance element to it. She said herself in her post, it wasn't something they do every day. She was taking part in a dance activity. So, you know, I think she's vindicated on that front. But I've let my daughter play with makeup since she was 3. When she was 3, she showed a distinct interest in my makeup palettes, going through my stuff. She's 10 now, and while I don't let her wear a full face like a drag queen, I do let her wear, you know, a bit of mascara on a weekend if she wants to. I don't see any harm in it.
Clearly, if you're a child of a Kardashian who's paid millions of dollars to endorse cosmetics, you know, that's part of the fabric of their family. My concern, though, Julie, is putting those pictures on social media where people can see them. We live in an age now where, you know, wrong-uns are scouring the internet all the time.
A lot of girls do enjoy putting makeup on. It's almost like a self-expression thing. It's like painting on a canvas. They're just trying to be a bit artistic. I don't think it's necessarily as sort of sinister as we're making out. And I think as long as you're not posting pictures everywhere or putting them at risk of harm, I don't see any danger.
The People's Channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
As time passes,
She could have saved Storm.
you made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel. Welcome back to GB News Saturday with me, Dawn Neeson, on your TV, online and on digital radio. Now, manager Gareth Southgate says his team are ready to make history after reaching the final of Euro 2024. A stunning stoppage time goal from substitute Ollie Watkins secured a 2-1 victory over the Netherlands. How can we forget it? In dramatic fashion this week. Now comes the test. The Three Lions will face Spain tomorrow night with the hope of being crowned European champions. I'm thrilled to say, are joined now by former England player Trevor Stephen and sports broadcaster Aidan McGee. Aidan and Trevor, thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. Trevor, I mean, you know, we're all sitting on our sofas, we're screaming at our tellies. I think never have so many tellies been screamed at in the history of football. What is it like as a player? I mean, just paint a little portrait of what it is like to be a player on the world stage. I mean, you've been there. You won, what is it, 34 caps, 36 caps? Mm-hmm. And to get what we're giving the players out there, what's it like?
It's difficult to sum that up. I never got to a final during the period that I was playing, but we got into the semi-final of the World Cup and the quarter-final, the Hand of God game way back in 1986 in the World Cup. They're incredibly proud moments, you know, for you as an individual footballer. It's the culmination of, you know, all the schoolboy hours that you put in to becoming a professional, and it becomes the pinnacle. It's the pinnacle that you're searching for. These lads have got so much to play for now. They've been to a final before, and they'll just be feeling ready for it now. And I think one of the key things which I picked up on Gareth Southgate yesterday was he's trying to drain the emotion out of it as far as the fanfare and the hullabaloo around the 90 minutes football we'll see tomorrow night, which is a great thing. I always felt when I was playing, we didn't really have that protection so much. We were kind of in the firing line very easily into the media in those days. A lot more protection now, a lot more understanding, I think, of what it means to wear the England shirt. But these lads are now ready. And what I love about them is the spirit that they have in their group and the ability to keep believing in themselves. You know, we've seen them go through on penalties. We've seen the Bellingham, the last few minutes goal strike, the overhead kick. And of course, we had to wait quite a long time for Ollie Watkins to make his mark. So they're ready. And I've seen a steady improvement as well through the tournament. So really excited about tomorrow.
Just quickly, Trevor, if I may, it's Aidan here. It was 24 years of hurt, I think, in 1990. It's doubled now to 58 years of hurt. Just quickly for us, what are the key battles on the pitch? Where do you think you'll be won or lost?
Well, if you look at the Spain team, I mean, it's phenomenal. And the way that they've gelled together, really strong in defence, excellent in midfield. And they've got the two, greyhounds, if you like, on the flanks through Yamal and Nico Williams. But we haven't to worry too much about them. We have to play our own game. And I'm very interested and keen to see how aggressive we are at the start of the match, and can we take the
Trevor,
game
I'm going to have to stop you there, I'm afraid, because we need to go. But thanks very much indeed for joining us, and we wish you a good game and hope that England win all those battles you're talking about.
Lots more coming up. Don't go too far. See you soon.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good afternoon. This is your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. The search for summer really is on hold at the moment for many of us. Disappointing conditions this weekend. High pressure is tantalisingly close out towards the west, but it is this low pressure in the North Sea that is driving conditions for a good chunk of us today. Particularly down the eastern side, very cloudy with continuing outbreaks of rain and drizzle this afternoon, persistently turning heavy even to this evening and overnight for parts of the Scottish borders, Northumberland, down into North East Yorkshire as well. Do watch out for that. The skies will be clearing a touch more for southern areas of England and Wales. A few mist and fog patches here overnight and maybe single figures for some rural spots, but underneath the cloud elsewhere, temperatures will be holding up in double digits for most of us. But actually, with these clearer skies in the south, it does mean that we'll start off Sunday on a better note. A decent amount of sunshine first thing for these southern districts. The mist and fog will clear quite readily once the sun rises as well, so not too bad of a start if you're heading out early on. A few bright spells for Northern Ireland as well. Still a lot of cloud though for central northern areas of England with that drizzly outbreaks of rain. Central and western areas of Scotland actually not faring too badly, but again in the north and the east, a lot of cloud coming in with that brisk northeasterly flow down in from the North Sea. This rain will turn lighter as we head throughout the day, so generally turning a bit more patchy, but still very dull and dreary for much of southern Scotland into northern England throughout Sunday. A few showers possible elsewhere, but really holding on to a few brighter spots also. And in that brightness as well, temperatures a little up compared to where we have been today, around 20 to 23 degrees Celsius for central Scotland, into parts of the south as well, but still very cool and disappointing in that central area. The rain will ease off as we head into Sunday evening, just in time for any outdoor viewing parties for the Euros Grand Final. And as we head into the next week, though, do be prepared for more areas of low pressure, rain and showers to start arriving. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye-bye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's our summer treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest cash prize of the year so far. With an extra £30,000 in your bank account this year, you could take the ultimate financial holiday and send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could get you those nagging home improvements done, buy that brand new car, or just enable you to kick back and relax for the rest of the year. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
No one wants their child to be a fussy eater. But what is the secret to expanding your child's culinary horizons?
Is there a way to get kids away from the kids' menu, the fish fingers, the chips? Joining us now is the UK's top-selling author of children's cookery books, Annabelle Carmel. Good morning, Annabelle.
Thank you. So lovely to be here.
So, first of all, what's the issue with kids just having the traditional easy meals like fish fingers, you know, chips, beans?
It really depends if they've got preservatives in them, if they're full of salt. So I like to make them myself, and it's really easy. So I make my own chicken glazed nuggets, and super easy to make using proper pieces of chicken. You can cook them in the air fryer now, which is absolutely brilliant, so you need to fry them. And I think that it's really important that children grow up loving good food, because they make their minds up by the age of 5 what they like and what they don't like, and it's quite difficult to change their minds after that. But it's good to know that fussy eating is genetic. It's not to do with your cooking.
Oh,
that's not to say that you can't do something about it. So I've written many, many books, and I have an app with 1,000 recipes on it, and a lot of how to make your own junk food, how to make your own isoles out of fresh fruit.
Yes.
How to make your own pizzas. I make the most amazing homemade pizza. I actually brought you some cookies here.
Okay, so these are your books here. So my first cookbook, that's for how old children?
That's from the age of 1.
OK, and you've got a weaning one at the end, the baby one?
Yes, that's my very first book. I lost my first child. It was really sad. She died at the age of 3 months. And my second child was the world's worst eater. And I wrote that book as my legacy to Natasha, never thinking that it would start a whole career.
Oh, bless you.
It sold millions of copies, and it's so popular.
Is it quite pivotal and important that you introduce kids to the weaning stage, or, you know, how important?
It's very important, because the processed weaning food in pouches or jars, it's heated, so a lot of the vitamins aren't there anymore, so making your own is so easy and much cheaper.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello and welcome to GB News Saturday. I'm Dawn Neeson. For the next 2 hours, I'll be keeping you company on telly, online and on digital radio. Keeping you up to date on the stories that really matter to you. A cracking hour coming up, so you don't want to go anywhere. Now, early releases under Labour as prison overcrowding is blamed for drastic measures. The Justice Secretary has announced that some prisoners, including violent ones, could be released after serving just 40% of their sentence. Are Britain's streets about to become unsafe, though? Even more unsafe, even. And royal return with the news that the Princess of Wales will be returning to Wimbledon for the final. And as America has once seemingly gone quiet on Harry and Meghan, are we seeing a royal revival in fortunes for the royal family? And yes, it's coming home. Possibly don't say that, it's a jinx. Gareth Southgate says his team are ready to make history after reaching the final of Euro 2024. But can the Three Lions beat Spain tomorrow night and become European champions? But this show is nothing without you and your views. And let me know your thoughts on all the stories we're discussing today by visiting gbnews.com/your say and join the conversation, or message me on our socials. Even easier, just at GB News. But first, it's time for the news headlines with Sophia Wenzel.
Dawn, thank you. Good afternoon from the GB Newsroom at just gone 1 o'clock. Your top story this hour. A 34-year-old man has now been arrested in connection with the investigation into human remains found in 2 suitcases near Clifton Suspension Bridge. Armed police detained the man at Bristol Templemead Station and he will be taken to London for questioning later. There had been a manhunt in the wake of the discovery of body parts, but police are now not looking for anyone else in connection with the incident. Investigators believe the remains found at an address in Shepherd's Bush are linked to those found in the 2 suitcases in Bristol on Wednesday. The family of 3 women who were killed in a crossbow attack in Hertfordshire this week have said they are devastated. John Hunt and his daughter Amy issued a statement after the murders of 61-year-old Carol Hunt and her 2 daughters, 25-year-old Louise and Hannah, who's 28, who were attacked at their home in Bushey. It comes as a 26-year-old man has now been arrested on suspicion of the murders. And in the US, President Joe Biden has confirmed he's going to stay as a Democratic candidate for the upcoming election. It comes as top Democratic donors have threatened to withhold around £70 million of campaign funds if Joe Biden isn't replaced as candidate. That's after more blunders at the NATO summit. Speaking at a campaign rally in Detroit, Biden told his supporters that not only will he run, but he will also win the presidency once again.
You probably noticed there's a lot of speculation lately. What's Joe Biden going to do? Is he going to stay in the race? Is he going to drop out? Here's my answer. I am running and we're going to win. I'm not going to change that.
But Professor of US Politics Scott Lucas has told GB News most Democrats want Biden to step down.
Some Democrat donors have already said they will not provide money to the campaign until the situation is resolved. In other words, until Biden steps down. You've mentioned those that have now said that they are planning to do so, but the Democrats are already losing some funds. And I think what you're going to see this weekend is, there's going to be a review by those high up in the Democratic Party of where they are in the financial situation. They're going to review the polling, which actually shows that Biden and Trump are still running neck to neck, but that a majority of Democrats do want Biden to step aside. And they're going to look at Biden's performance.
Meanwhile, Elon Musk has reportedly donated to a political group working to elect Donald Trump as president. According to Bloomberg, the amount was not known, but it was a sizable amount given to a group called America PAC. The Tesla founder, Mr. Musk, has not responded to these reports. Meanwhile, Biden campaign spokesman James Singer has accused Musk of knowing Trump is a sucker who will sell America out, cutting his taxes while raising taxes on the middle classes. Alec Baldwin's manslaughter case has been dismissed by a judge nearly 3 years on from the death of Helena Hutchins on the set of the Western film Rust in New Mexico. The cinematographer Helena was shot with a revolver that Mr. Baldwin was using in rehearsals in 2021. The trial collapsed 3 days into Baldwin's trial in Santa Fe. It is the second time the case against the actor has been dismissed and he will not be tried again. The US actor broke down in tears as the judge dismissed the involuntary manslaughter case against him.
The sanction of dismissal is the only warranted remedy. The jury has been sworn, jeopardy has attached, and a mistrial would not be based upon manifest necessity. Further, the sanction of dismissal is warranted in this case.
In other news, the Prince of Wales has said he is so proud of England ahead of the Euro 2024 final against Spain tomorrow. They've reached the tournament's final for the second time in a row after being beaten by Italy on penalties at Wembley in 2021. Ahead of tomorrow's match, Prince William added, "Go out there and show the world what you're made of. We believe." And the Princess of Wales will attend the Wimbledon men's singles final tomorrow and present the trophy. It will be her second public appearance since her cancer diagnosis was announced earlier this year, after she attended Trooping the Colour last month. Princess Catherine has been a patron of the All England Lawn Tennis and Croquet Club since 2016. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Wensler, more in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Sophia. Now let's get straight into today's story, shall we? Some violent prisoners will be released early in an attempt to tackle overcrowding. Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood has announced the scheme to release thousands of prisoners to avoid a total breakdown of law and order. This comes as former Home Secretary Suella Braverman said Labour is putting the public at risk with this new scheme. Joining me now is GB News political correspondent Catherine Forster to explain exactly what is going on. Catherine, thank you very much. Still raining where you are, I see. What a surprise. Catherine, can you explain exactly what this policy is about and what's going to happen?
Yes, Dawn. So this was already happening under the last Conservative government. They were having to release prisoners early because the jails, frankly, are full. There's only about 700 spaces for men remaining in English and Welsh prisons. There's a big problem with overcrowding. So this was already happening. But what Labour are going to do is, rather than release people at 50% of their sentence, bring it forward to 40% for people that have sentences of less than 4 years. Now, originally it sounded like that meant that no violent offenders would be released early. It's since emerged that's not the case. So we could be looking at people with convictions for things like assault, knife crime, firearms offences, burglary, etc. The government is saying they're going to release about 5,000 people early by the end of the year. They're giving a couple of months for probation services to get ready for this, but I have to say it's going to be incredibly difficult because the probation service already, frankly, is on its knees as it is without this additional burden. But Shabana Mahmood, the Justice Secretary, says that this is the only way to avert disaster because basically if the prisons are full, then people have to be put into police cells. Then the courts can't convict people, there's nowhere to put them, police can't arrest people, and she's saying that we could see looters running amok, smashing in windows, robbing shops, setting neighbourhoods alight potentially. So a sort of doomsday scenario. They're saying that this is the least bad option, but certainly, you know, it doesn't reflect well on where we are now. A lot of people think that lots of things in Britain are broken, but this is a situation that has been building for years, putting more people in jail and simply not having the places for them. And just one last thought, I think it's really interesting that they've appointed James Timpson of the Timpson key cutting and shoe fixing chain. They've appointed him as prisons minister. He very famously employed convicts, and he says that he reckons probably only about a third of people currently in jail actually should be there, that another third possibly shouldn't be, and that another third again should never have been put in jail in the first place. So I think there's a big rethink coming, but at the moment they've got a huge crisis to try to get to control.
Indeed, Catherine Forster, thank you very much for bringing us up to date on the scheme. Not a new scheme, the Conservatives already put this into place to release prisoners early because prisons are so overcrowded. Lots of you getting in touch on this subject at all. Dylan says, keep the violent prisoners in and release the non-violent ones. It depends on your definition of how violent is violent, doesn't it, basically? And then why don't, Carol says, why don't we deport those waiting to be deported? But I think, Carol, you mean the people in prison who are foreign prisoners. There's quite a few of them. So there are lots of you getting in touch on this one as well. Dickie says the government should be deporting all the foreign criminals. Again, a theme that's running around for a lot of you. Should be deporting all the foreign criminals they fought so hard to keep here when in opposition. That would solve the prisons crisis that the Tories allegedly caused in one fell swoop. Well, I think, as I said, this is both a Tory and a Labour initiative, because something has to be done. Doesn't it, Alex? But is this the right thing to do it?
I think, you know, as your reporter was talking about, you know, there were plans for some years to look at this. You know, at the moment, you know, you've got lots of people that are on good behaviour after around half of their sentence can be released. You know, there's obviously, you know, lots of restrictions as to make sure that they don't release the wrong people, hence why it needs to be on good behaviour and good behaviour for some time of their sentence. I actually think that there's lots of evidence to suggest that maybe they're looking at this from the wrong lens. I actually, you know, I've just finished jury service and, you know, obviously I can't go into the details of the case, but actually a lot of cases that we see are to do with mental health issues.
Yes.
You know, with people that actually, you know, have done, you know, ABH, DBH, you know, people that have been in, you know, fights, you know, being aggressive towards, you know, hospital staff, etc., etc. And actually, sometimes they get sentenced to go to prison, which is actually not the right place for them at all. There needs to be kind of mental health wards. And actually, you can make an argument that, you know, the stats I saw said about 15% of people that were in prison were actually related to mental health illness. So actually, you know, that's something straight away that Labour could look at.
Drug and drink issues and dependency issues.
So they can look at it, and I actually think that, you know, a lot of people get worried about this, thinking, oh my gosh, you know, we're going to have people that are, you know, rapists, murderers coming out. Absolutely not the case. There's no evidence to suggest, you know, these are people that have been in fights. These people, as you say, that have got, you know, drink issues, that have been related to drug offences. Now, that's not good, but equally, they're not the most serious offences, and I think the majority of the public will agree that prisons have got to be a space for the most serious offenders, and there's got to be other programmes for other offenders.
Okay, and that's Alex Cairns, founder of Youth Vote UK. Also joining me this hour is Albie Amakona, the host of the Saturday 5 here on GB News. Albie, what do you make of this policy?
This is an awful situation that the country should never have got itself into in the first place, and it is a result of underfunding prisons over decades. It's never a very sexy thing to say at an election, we're going to spend billions of pounds on prisons. Who on earth is going to vote for that when people have got all of these other demands on the state, the NHS, pensions, defence, housing? It's never going to be popular for a politician to go around knocking on doors saying we need to spend billions on prisons. But the point is, we do need to spend billions on prisons, otherwise these are the outcomes that we see happening. Now, the Conservative government, when they were in power in 2020, announced a new national prison building programme costing £4 billion. A lot of prison capacity was meant to come online in the middle of the 2020s. That is not happening because of issues with the planning system, which means that three mega prisons which are opening, I think, in Lancashire, Leicestershire and Buckinghamshire, are not going to open until the end of the decade because of planning objections.
And this is planning... to be fair, the Labour Party have said they are sorting out planning applications as well, so maybe that will help the situation with building new prisons. I mean, building on the Greenbelt, which we've heard a lot about as well.
But I actually really don't agree that the solution is to build more prisons. I think there needs to be intervention earlier. And that's why community policing is very, very important in the community. You know, the solution to just say we're inevitably going to have lots of people going to prisons, so let's just build more prisons, I don't think it's a solution at all. You've got to look at what's happening in the community. There's got to be more done at schools.
But some people need to be punished.
No, but the reality of you just saying that we're going to have to build more prisons because it's inevitable, it has to be an early intervention. It's the same thing with the NHS. You're basically saying that lots of people are inevitably going to come to hospital, so we've got to build more hospitals. No, there's got to be something done earlier down the funnel.
Do you believe in prison, Alex?
I believe in prison for the most serious offenders. I don't believe...
What does that mean?
But I don't believe someone that's had, you know, a drinking problem that has, you know, assaulted several people on a night out on a few occasions should be in prison. Next to someone that's potentially murdered someone. It's a completely different situation. There's got to be other preventative measures, because otherwise, what do we have the situation now? We've got the situation now where prisons are overcrowded, and I agree with Timpson. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that a portion of people that are in there shouldn't be there.
Why would you say that just because someone is drunk and they commit an assault on someone, that they are less deserving of going to prison than someone who wasn't drunk when they committed an assault on someone. The outcome is the same. You're causing a grievous bodily injury to an innocent member of the public. That victim would want to see justice served, would they not?
But what would you say to a family where someone, murdered their loved ones and there wasn't space for them in that prison because there was too many people that had, had a punch-up on a night out? Are you saying that that's more important for them to be in prison than versus the person that's murdered someone?
I'd say that's why we need to build more prisons, which is what I support.
I think we're not going to agree on this, clearly, but I think we've got to step in earlier and find solutions in the community.
The one thing I'm not hearing from anybody here is about the victims. I'm hearing a lot about caring for the mental health of prisoners. A few people are mentioning that already. What about the mental health of victims? I mean, I appreciate what you say about, getting into a fight when you're drunk. But what about, the men? It's not always men, I know this, involved in domestic violence. But what about the men that go home after football? This happens a lot, by the way. Go home and beat the wife up. I mean, all right, they've got a drink issue. They might have a mental health issue. But what about the woman involved in that? I'm not saying I get domestic violence happens to both sexes, but what about the victims? Why are we not hearing about the victims here?
Listen, I agree. I know it's a difficult situation, and obviously there's going to be lots of victims in this that will be very traumatised, thinking, oh, you know what, for whatever reason they were told by, the court there wasn't enough space in the prison, so the person that, hit you or, beated you isn't going to go to prison. I completely accept that that's unacceptable. However, there's going to be a scale here of, the opinions about what is the most serious and what capacity that they have. I just don't believe that the solution is to build more prisons, and that's just my perspective on this.
Albie, in I think the Netherlands, actually, they did introduce more community sentencing and policing, and it did decrease the jail population, so people were serving a sentence at home, sort of like a house arrest with tagging, etc., etc. And that seems to have helped. But is that something that would work in this country with our probation service on its knees already and just not enough social care services to look after people properly?
I don't think there's any reason why a scheme that has worked well in a country which is quite similar to the UK, like the Netherlands, couldn't work in the UK. But fundamentally, I think the disagreement that I have with perhaps some people on the left that I think really just fundamentally don't actually believe in prison, and that's fine, just make that point and be honest about it, is that I do actually believe in prison, and I'm perfectly happy that people are punished for crimes that they commit in quite a harsh way. Because I think for the victims of crime, that's quite often what these people want to see. They don't want to see that these people are having soft sentences in the community or whatever. They want to know that these people have been punished. But on the other side of the ledger, prison has got to be about rehabilitation. And it's no longer about rehabilitation because the prisons are so overcrowded, so underfunded, that it is impossible to rehabilitate people. And essentially what you're doing by sending people to prison is making it more likely that they're going to reoffend.
The one suggestion that keeps coming up from viewers and listeners, and please do keep your views coming in, is that we have a lot of foreign prisoners in our jails. Why don't we
Almost 12% of prisoners are foreign nationals.
Why don't we just deport them back to the countries they came from originally?
Because, again, in terms of the administrative and logistics on that, it's, I don't necessarily disagree with that, but again, it's very complicated. And again, all of these ideas cost money and staff resources, and while you're trying to sort that out, there's going to be, there's already up to a 3-year backlog in the courts at the moment, and that's ridiculous. We've got people waiting 3-4 years if they've actually been in a sexual offence or potential rape case, and they're waiting years. So there needs to be more attention to that than this constant obsession with any foreigner in the NHS or any foreigner in the courts. Let's just deport them. We know from the Rwanda scheme that takes time and it's very, very complicated. And I actually disagree with you. I actually think people on the left do agree with prisons. But actually,
some of you don't.
But the disagreement me and you have is I actually think that prison should be for the most serious offences. I don't think that people getting into a punch-up on a night out that causes some bruising should then result in that person going to prison for 6 months. It's just a waste of the space of a cell, in my opinion, and that's just where the right and the left disagree on this.
I'd be interested to hear your views out there. If you have been a victim of an assault, sort of like beaten up by a drunk on the way home, What do you think should happen to the person that attacked you? Do get in touch and let us know what you're feeling. Right, we move on for now, though. For all the best analysis and opinion on that story, simply go to a website, gbnews.com. Now, I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News Saturday, and there's loads more coming up on today's absolutely packed show. Can the Three Lions make history and beat Spain tomorrow night and be crowned European champions? All of that, and there's much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. Grab a beer, but don't go too far.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm joined now by Stefan Kyriasis to give us the latest on everything theatre.
So, yeah, we're going in first with Starlight Express, which is back. It's not in the West End. It's out at Wembley at the Troubadour Theatre, which is a big, almost kind of warehouse space, which suits because, as you know, have you seen the show?
Starlight Express was my first ever musical. I must have been about 7 or 8 years old. I only saw it once, but I remember it being magical.
Well, this one, it's 1984 it started, and it's still running in Bochum in Germany in a huge arena. So basically what we've got, they've slightly tweaked it, and there's a little boy or little girl, depending on the cast, going to bed, obsessed with toy trains and dreaming of trains. Everybody is dressed up. To me, it looks like a cross between Tron and Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. I don't really think any of them look remotely like a train, but hey, the songs are Andrew Lloyd Webber. It's pop mixed with kind of cod 1950s rock and roll, some power ballads. The lyrics are politely like something out of an old speak and spell machine or something, you know. He's a steam train, they're out of date, he's being bullied by the diesel and the electric, and he falls for this carriage, the first-class carriage, new girl Pearl, and he wants to impress her, so he enters a race, and that's pretty much it. And when the races happen, all these barriers come up around where we're sitting, the lights are flashing, the music's thumping. It's utterly ridiculous, and I felt like a kind of teenager that was huffing sherbet dib-dabs off a giant block of sugar. It's so much fun, and the really crucial thing about it all is that somehow, in the middle of all of that, I just felt myself getting into the story. And when Pearl and Rusty have their little duet, I was very moved, and there's this big starlight sequence, which is the inspiration, the magical starlight that he's seeking. It's beautiful.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome back to GB News Saturday with me, Dawn Neeson, on your telly, online and on digital radio. I hope you're having a wonderful weekend out there. It's a big one, isn't it? Now, manager Gareth Southgate says his team are ready to make history after reaching the final of Euro 2024. A stunning stoppage time goal from substitute Ollie Watkins secured a 2-1 victory over the Netherlands in dramatic fashion this week. Now, the Three Lions face Spain tomorrow night with the hope of being crowned European champions. Joining me now is GB News reporter Jack Carson, who is hugely lucky and actually out in Berlin where the final is going to be. Jack, hello, what's going on out there now?
Well, I mean, as you've just seen here, we're right by the Berlin Cathedral. Let's just take another look at that again. I mean, look at that, the fantastic dome on top of there. We can be in Berlin and here in Germany, so let's bring a bigger history and bring a bit of the sights of the England fans here are going to be seeing as they arrive ready for this tournament. And we're joined once again with Chris Scudder on the programme. I mean, Chris, you know, the history that surrounds us, England can make more history tomorrow night, can't they?
That place was flattened pretty much in 1945. Looks very different now. It's been rebuilt, as there's a lot of this part of town. But yeah, I mean, it's such an historic place, this, and England fans gathering, starting to come in. I think a lot of people still driving here, those who have not been able to fly or get trains here. It's very difficult to come last minute now. But it's a great city, it really is, and not just England fans. You see just over to behind me there, some of the Spanish fans in their very colourful costume. I was just asking them if they spoke a bit of English, but all I got was Viva España, which is not going to help really. But there you go. They look fantastic. I'm sure we'll have. You know, this will be a gathering point tomorrow, and in various other points, Brandenburg Boat Gate, where we were last hour, there's a huge fan park there. I think there'll be about the stadium. I was there in 2006 for the final when Italy beat France on penalties. There'll be about 30,000 England fans, we reckon, inside, and then another 20,000 probably around town. And many of them, I reckon, will be in the Brandenburg Gate fan park, which will be a terrific place to be. And, you know, wouldn't it be wonderful? Wouldn't it be amazing if, having seen the Germans win the Euros in England and take the mick by singing Fußball's Coming Home back in 1996, if we could sing Football's Coming Home in Germany, that would be pretty special, wouldn't it?
I mean, this is it, and there's a lot of attention on Southgate, but mainly because I think of this point of redeeming himself, because a lot of people still think that we should have won in 2021 against that Italy side, and of course, you know, his contract is out as well at the end of this tournament. Chris, you know, there's a lot of speculation about whether he'll stay, whether he'll go. You know, he said at the moment he's too kind of emotionally in this tournament to make a decision. I mean, what's your kind of view on that?
Yeah, I think they should have won in 2021. You know, everybody says he sat back that day. He sat back against Croatia in the World Cup semi-final, but he's had that happy knack of winning these games. I mean, at the start of this tournament, given the squad that England have got, if you said England are going to get to the final, I think that's about par. I think what people expected, semi-final, final, definitely. If England play well, if they win it, he will stay on. I'm pretty certain of that. He says he's going to wait and decide later. If they play well and lose bravely, that's a very British thing, isn't it? We're past that. It's all about winning now. I think he still might stay if asked. But if England play as badly as they have so far, certainly in the group stage, and lose tomorrow, I think there'll be another massive pile on. I think he'll be criticised again, because this is all about winning now. It's time for England to do it. You can't keep going to these finals, semi-finals and lose. You've got to beat the big teams. Before the Holland game, we'd never beaten a major nation abroad in a knockout game. So we broke a duck there. Spain's going to be another challenge again. They're a better team than us maybe so far, but we've got the better individuals, and individual moments can win it for us, I think.
Of course. Well, that's what it's going to take, isn't it, really, tomorrow? And we'll have more of that from Chris, and bringing you a bit more history as well from Berlin later in the day.
Thank you very much. That's Jack Carson's history tour of Berlin with a bit of football thrown in for good measure. Thank you very much, Jack. We'll talk to you more later on. Joining me now is our reporter Anna Riley, who is, I believe, with some youngsters who have been inspired by England's success. Anna, what's happening where you are?
Good afternoon, Dawn. Yes, I'm here at Pelican Park Community Trust. It's a sports club for all ages, but this morning it was all about the football. Children here enjoying the sport, enjoying the game, and they've certainly been inspired by England in the Euros, just how far they've got, and that's affected their game. They said that they are a lot more interested in football now. Speaking to the staff here, they said the numbers have certainly increased as well for children wanting to come along and play football, and this is what they told me earlier.
I think they're going to beat Spain 2-1, so it's going to be quite a tight game.
Yamal is a really talented young lad. He's really good, so I think he's going to pose some really difficult situations for us, but I think we can get there if we try our hardest.
It's been a while since we've won the Euros, and it'd just be really exciting that we can beat Spain.
I feel it's going to be hard, but I think it's coming home.
It's coming home!
So the players here say it's coming home, Dawn, and it's just fantastic to see the enthusiasm of these young people, see how much the Euros and how well England are doing have bolstered them, really inspired them. And here in Hull, they say it's coming home. So fingers crossed, England versus Spain. Fingers crossed, England win tomorrow.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you, Anna. And so many lovely youngsters there. Just going to read on this. Nigel, thank you for getting in touch, Nigel. Roll on Sunday night, fed up of all the discussions around the Euros. It's a game. It's not life-changing. Well, I think you've heard, Nigel, there, that for some youngsters it is life-changing. And if those youngsters are inspired by our young footballers and go on to be footballers themselves, I think that's very inspirational. But keep your views coming in. Now, let's go to Will Hollis. Will, are you there? And what's happening where you are?
Yes, a lot of enthusiasm from those youngsters in Yorkshire. You'll find a lot of enthusiasm as well here at pubs like the Swan in Mansfield, where they've been getting into the spirit. Their fan zone has been fitting 1,200, 1,500 local people down celebrating the game. It's a little bit more quiet now, but we know that pubs have really benefited from this Euros run. Lots of money for individual games. For this upcoming game, it's going to be worth £120 million to the UK hospitality sector, and the CEO of UK Hospitality, Kate Nichols, said that pubs are going to be packed to the rafters on what will be a momentous day. We know that pubs have had a desperate time in the last few years, but Euros and football tends to fill out these places. Right now it's lunchtime on a Saturday and a few people are here already in their England shirts. Maybe some of them are biding their time because we know that a lot of money is going to be spent in places like this tomorrow night, and quite happily the pubs are open till 1 o'clock with licences extended, but there's no word yet on that bank holiday and whether people will get a lie-in on Monday.
Will, thank you. Live from a pub talking about bank holidays. Right, we're going to win or lose 10 o'clock on Sunday night. We're going to have a bank holiday next Monday. Make it make sense. Will Hollis, live from a pub in Cambridgeshire. Thank you very much, Will. We'll be coming back to you later to see how much you're helping the hospitality industry out. Right, Alex and Albie are still with me. Albie, excited for the game? Feel-good factor? The country needs it, doesn't it?
I'm so excited. I always get into the football once we get to the semi-finals or the finals. As I said last week, I'm a glory hunter. So I'm very excited, but I'm so jealous that the weather is so much better in Berlin than it is anywhere in the United Kingdom.
This is true.
He was wearing a T-shirt.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time I wore a T-shirt. Alex has got one on now.
But I mean, the thing is, the weather actually is forecast to be good tomorrow, and Tesco's are expecting to sell nearly 800,000 packs of sausages and more than 1 million pies as people go and have barbecues and party and watch the game in the sunshine. Fingers crossed.
I'm looking forward to it. I actually think, you know, unlike Albie, I watch all of the England games. I support the country from the first match. and it is difficult, but I think, you know, listen, I think tomorrow will be good weather. I just hope that Southgate actually understands he's got 5 subs that he can use before the 80th minute.
Yes, I know. Yes, I know. Yes, brilliant. Thank you very much. And just one quick message from you. Keep them coming in. There's so many. I'm running out of time to read them. Where's it gone? Charles. Hi, Charles. Charles says, still not hearing any congratulations to England's Lionesses who won yesterday. I thought GB News cared about them. I do care about them. Congratulations to the ladies, indeed. And, of course, you know, the women have done it. We've won stuff, haven't we? Just saying, boys, just saying. Probably best go to the news, I think. I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News Saturday, and there's lots more coming up on today's show as we delve deeper into Labour's new prison plans. But first, it's the news with Sophia Wensler.
Dawn, thank you. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB Newsroom. Your headlines just after 1:30. A 34-year-old man has now been arrested in connection with the investigation into human remains found in 2 suitcases near Clifton Suspension Bridge. Armed police detained the man at Bristol Templemead Station, and he'll be taken to London for questioning later. There had been a manhunt in the wake of the discovery of body parts, but police are now not looking for anyone else in connection with the incident. Investigators believe the remains found at an address in Shepherd's Bush are linked to those found in the 2 suitcases in Bristol on Wednesday. The family of the 3 women who were killed in a crossbow attack in Hertfordshire this week have said they are devastated. John Hunt and his daughter Amy issued a statement after the murders of 61-year-old Carol Hunt and her two daughters, 25-year-old Louise and Hannah, who's 28, who were attacked at their home in Bushey. It comes as a 26-year-old man has now been arrested on suspicion of the murders. An Israeli airstrike has targeted the mastermind behind the 7th of October attack, according to a security official. Officials in Gaza say at least 71 Palestinians have been killed in the strike on a designated humanitarian area. But an Israeli official said the strike targeted the head of Hamas's military wing in an open area where there were only Hamas terrorists and no civilians. And the Prince of Wales has said he is so proud of England ahead of the Euros 2024 final against Spain tomorrow. They've reached the tournament's final for the second time in a row after being beaten by Italy on penalties at Wembley in 2021. Ahead of tomorrow's match, Prince William added, "Going out there and showing the world what we're made of, we believe." Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Wensler, more in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Sophia. I've just got to read this one out quickly. Matthew, how? Hello, Matthew. You say, if I hear someone say it's coming home one more time, I think my head will explode. Right, I think we have to go to a break now. Run out of time. Here you are. Don't go too far, though.
Hello there, welcome to your GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Quite a mixed picture on the cards in terms of our weather this weekend, disappointing for some of us, but a few brighter spells possible, particularly further towards the west where we do have high pressure, keeping things a touch more settled. But for those in the east, it is low pressure in the North Sea that is providing more unsettled conditions. A lot of cloud coming in with this, outbreaks of rain and drizzle, a very dull, damp and dreary Saturday for many of us here. Those brighter spells possible further towards the west, but sunshine still really at a premium for many of us, and that is going to factor in with the temperatures. Very disappointing. 13, 14 degrees Celsius for some of us is well below where we normally expect to be for the middle of July. Might just scrape 19 or 20 degrees across areas of the south and southwest. That area of cloud and rain is going to be quite persistent. Eastern areas of Scotland, very cloudy throughout Saturday, but further towards the Highlands, parts of Argyll and Bute again, seeing the best of some of that sunshine in there. A few showers possible with those bright spells for Northern Ireland. They could be on the sharp side around at times, and as well a few showers also possible for Wales, parts of southern England, perhaps the odd rumble of thunder around in there as well. Those showers tending to ease off as we head into this evening and overnight. And actually for southern areas of Wales and England, the cloud will break up a bit more as well. A few mist and fog patches possible here, but it is going to remain very cloudy, damp and soggy for northern areas of England, southern Scotland, with that rain really persisting, turning heavy at times, maybe some localised flooding issues in one or two places. That cloud, though, will help hold the temperatures up. Most of us in double-digit figures overnight, might just drop into single figures in some rural spots underneath those clearer skies in the south. And it is here that we'll have the best of the sunshine first thing on Sunday. Not too bad of a start before some of that cloud builds in again, and not too bad in the way of sunshine as well for parts of central Scotland. Again, that sort of Argyll and Bute Highlands area. But the central swathe of the UK is going to see persistent cloud and rain throughout all of Sunday as well. Disappointing once again, unfortunately. Bye-bye.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Oh dear, we're having an afternoon of it. Here we are. We've just been talking about erecting shells for some reason, but more of that to come later. This is GB News Saturday, and I'm Dawn Neeson on your telly, online and on digital radio. Now, more on the government's prison chaos. Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood has announced that some violent criminals will be released from prison in an early attempt to tackle overcrowding. It has raised huge questions about the logistics involved, not least from many of you out there who are very concerned about this. Joining me now is somebody who can tell us about that, retired prison governor Vanessa Frake. Vanessa, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Now, you have been at the sharp end of what it's actually like in prison. I mean, we're told it is bad that this has to happen. What do you make of this policy, though? Is it a good idea?
Good afternoon, Dawn. I understand people's feelings on it. I absolutely do. But the greater risk is if we run out completely of prison beds. The risk to the public then is even greater for the fact that the police won't be able to arrest serious violent offenders. And will have no choice. If police cells are full, if prison cells are full, you know, what are we going to do? You know, the grim reality is we need to act quickly. This should have been dealt with 12 months ago. You know, the previous government were warned. They were warned by the Prison Officers Association, by the Prison Governors Association, and they chose to ignore it. And, you know, the situation has got worse and worse. It wasn't like they weren't, you know, the prison numbers weren't forecast. And so really this government now has to go around cleaning up the mess of the previous government. And the only real way that they can do that is by releasing a certain amount of prisoners. Those prisoners will be individually risk assessed on an individual basis. The risk assessments will probably have various conditions on it, like must stay in the same place, not to go in areas where the crime occurred, not to contact victims. They might be under a curfew, no drinking, no drugs, that sort of usual thing. And anything that they do, any misdemeanors that they do whilst on licence can result in them being put straight back into jail.
Vanessa, I mean, forgive me here, but the probation service and community sentencing and monitoring prisoners when they are released, it hasn't previously given us loads of confidence, has it? I mean, as we know, the probation service is on its knees as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, most of the public sectors were stripped of funding for the last 10, 15 years. And, you know, it is a worry. I don't disagree with that. I think the probation service and the monitoring agencies have got around 8 weeks before this is enforced to try and get their act together and get procedures in place to minimise the risk of reoffending whilst on licence. You know, it's a gamble without a doubt. But the greater gamble is if they do nothing.
Vanessa, this is a sticking plaster. I think everyone admits that. It's not a long-term solution. So is the long-term solution, as Albie, one of my panellists, suggested, to build more prisons, or as my other panellist, Alex, suggested, to send less people to prison?
I think it's a combination of both, to be honest. I think we need to look at who we lock up, what we lock them up for, and how long we lock them up for. You know, my own personal view is that there's a lot of people in prison who would be better serving their sentence in the community, full stop. Those that are first-time offenders for non-violent crime, those that don't pay their TV licence, you know, those sorts of crimes. But what I would say is that on the whole, you know, we've got old Victorian prisons that are no longer fit for purpose. They're not up to date. You know, some have got sewage running down the landings. You know, this isn't what we want for a modern day prison service. And it's not how we're going to retain staff to work in one either.
No, Vanessa, very quickly, we're running out of time, unfortunately. Just quickly, we've got lots of people getting in touch saying they are worried now that the streets will be less safe than they already are even. What message would you have to people who are now worried that they are more at risk because prison's being released?
I mean, I think you have to understand that, you know, it's 40% of a sentence. So on a sentence of, say, 12 months, instead of doing 6 months, they'll be doing 4.5 months. So in the grand scheme of things, and each prisoner will be risk assessed on an individual basis. And the governor has autonomy over all of that to say, no, this person has been violent whilst in custody and he is not suitable or she is not suitable for this early release scheme. So I would urge people not to feel too concerned and to trust that those who know prisoners, who know prison systems will get it right. But at the end of the day, there is little else we can do for a quick fix solution.
Brilliant. And Vanessa Frake, retired prison governor and author, thank you very much for joining us, Vanessa. Always talking sense there. We have already discussed that. Lots and lots of people are getting in touch and lots of people taking issue with you, Alex, about your comments earlier about, you know, people with drink and drug issues assaulting people on the street. People are getting in touch saying, well, you know, they need punishing. You know, it's like, you know, I'm the victim in this. We're forgetting about the victims. I mean, you know, how dare that person on your panel say that these people need help? What about the victims? They need help as well.
No, of course, but my point is there's got to be other measures because there's always going to be a scale, and the scale of the least serious to the most serious offences with the current capacity, you can't just have a scale where you accept all of them are going to go to prison, some for 12 months, some for 20 years. You know, there's got to be maybe financial, you know, penalties, or maybe they're fined. I don't know, maybe they are given some sort of other community service. But my point is, we can't have a situation where some people that murder wouldn't go to prison because they're full with lots of people that have, you know, night out offences, you know, drinking, etc. Like there's always going to be a scale. And I know that will upset people, but that's the reality. We can't just build more prisons because there's lots of other priorities that I think are more important than just chucking, you know, £2 billion on 3 more prisons.
What would you say those priorities were if you think that's the case, Albie?
The priorities for prisoners? Well, look, I've already said my point of view. I think we need to be building more prisons. That is something which is going to be take until the end of the decade. I think the guest that we just had on speaks a lot of sense. Unfortunately, I think it is difficult for Conservative MPs like Suella Braverman to attack the Labour government for doing something that the Conservatives were going to do anyway, and that the Conservatives had 14 years to sort out if they really wanted to. I think it takes an almighty cheek for Conservative MPs after being in power for 14 years to have a go at the Labour government for having to fix a problem that the Conservatives created. And
that they came up with a solution. Lots of people on here. It's a very interesting show. I haven't heard it suggested before. Lots of people on here. I think it was John. Forgive me, I've lost your message now. You know, we had a system set up with Rwanda where we're sending people to Rwanda. We used to do it in the past with Australia. Why don't we use that system now? Send prisoners from the overcrowded jails to Rwanda, let them finish their prison sentences there.
A lot of people, there is a massive obsession with, you know, if there's an issue with any capacity, we'll just send them overseas. The reality is it's very, very complicated, you know, and it takes a long time. And in the meantime, there's still a backlog of potentially prisoners that are going to the courts, can't be seen. The reality is, the solution is intervene earlier, try and, you know, have a preventative measure, as opposed to accepting that everyone's just going to go to prison. And everyone needs to understand this is the minority. You know, we don't have 50% of prisons that have 50% of foreigners, you know. Like, people do get carried away, and I think they need to accept that the preventative measures got to be the strategy here.
A last word very, very quickly to you, Albie.
There's a reason why we don't have penal colonies anymore. Penal colonies are something which Russia does. I think sending illegal migrants to a third country of processing and setting up penal colonies are two very different things. That, if I can just say, is a very silly idea. I think we can certainly deport the 12% of prisoners who are foreign nationals, but the idea we'd send British nationals to serve their prison sentences abroad is absurd.
Right, OK, I'm just going to... thank you very much. But the last word coming to you, Anton, for getting in touch. Thank you very much. Take the prisoners out of prison and get them to build new prisons. Sort of makes sense.
Brilliant idea.
Thank you very much, Anton. Right, I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News Saturday, and there's lots more coming up on today's show. So, should we talk about the Princess of Wales returning to Wimbledon? All of that and much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. Don't go too far.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
In World War I, 309 men from Britain and the Commonwealth never came home because they'd been shot at dawn. The majority were killed for desertion, cowardice and sleeping at post. Appearing at their court-martials and told they'd brought shame on their country, these men had no opportunity to defend themselves and were executed by a firing squad. The National Memorial Arboretum launched a fundraising campaign to restore the memorial, which has stood for more than 20 years.
Thank you to your viewers for their support for the fundraising campaign. And thanks to the generosity of so many people, we've been able to replace all 309 of the posts that represent those young men that were shot in the First World War, restoration of this really precious memorial.
The centrepiece of the memorial is the young soldier, blindfolded and facing his execution. In September 1916, Private Harry Farr was ordered to the front. Already suffering from shell shock, he was overwhelmed and refused his orders. He was court-martialed, and in a trial lasting only 20 minutes, he was sentenced to death. On the day of his execution, he faced the firing squad without a blindfold. Janet Booth is Private Farr's granddaughter and was part of the public campaign to have those who were shot at dawn officially pardoned.
When I asked my gran, do you know where I could find Harry's grave? And she looked at my mother and there was this sort of look between them, and then she said, well, he hasn't got a grave because they didn't warrant, he deserved one because he was shot as a coward and had let his country down. We can come here as a family and pay our respects to him, and also for all the other families, it's somewhere to come and remember their loved ones.
The People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to GB News. Now, we've got some good news for you. Princess Catherine is going back to Wimbledon, and joining us now to talk about this actually happy story is the Sun's Charles Ray. Charles, unfortunately, we haven't got that much time, but this is good news. Kate's going to be at Wimbledon.
It's fantastic news that she's going to be at the men's final tomorrow. And I suspect that on Monday morning, Dawn, when we get all our newspapers out, we're going to just see pictures of Catherine rather than the tennis players.
Sorry, and what were we expecting this? It comes as a bit of a surprise when I heard the news today. I was like, oh, that's actually quite, you know, whether you're a royalist or not, I mean, you know, the fact that she's recovering from the quite horrendous treatment it sounds like she's been having.
I think there was a lot of speculation that people were hoping that she was going to be there, but we've actually just, within the last couple of hours, had it actually confirmed that she is going to attend the men's final, and she'll present the trophies like she did last year. The sad part is that she won't be there today to do the same for the women's final, but at least we'll get to see her tomorrow, which is the main thing. And you know, best of luck to her. You know, clearly her recovery is going on and is taking time, and it's nice to see it out and about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the other person, quickly, Charles, it was nice to see out and about, was Princess Anne this week returning. Yeah. Still with a horrifically bruised face. I mean, that must have been some injury.
Yeah, I was beginning to wonder whether the horse who did it, is on its way to some knacker yard somewhere. But I'm sure she's looking after the poor animal. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Huge bruise. When you looked at some of the pictures this morning, you could actually see the bruise. So this was just a bit more than just a thump. And the fact that she had lost her memory for a time just shows how dangerous it was. They could have been.
Charles, thank you so much. Two royal ladies making a magnificent comeback. That's Charles Ray there from the Sun newspaper. Right, I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News Saturdays. Loads more coming up on stage. Don't go too far. But first, we have the all-important weather with Jonathan Vaultry.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good afternoon. This is your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. The search for summer really is on hold at the moment for many of us. Disappointing conditions this weekend. High pressure is tantalisingly close out towards the west, but it is this low pressure in the North Sea that is driving conditions for a good chunk of us today. Particularly down the eastern side, very cloudy with continuing outbreaks of rain and drizzle this afternoon, persistently turning heavy even to this evening and overnight for parts of the Scottish borders, Northumberland, down into North East Yorkshire as well. Do watch out for that. The skies will be clearing a touch more for southern areas of England and Wales. A few mist and fog patches here overnight and maybe single figures for some rural spots, but underneath the cloud elsewhere, temperatures will be holding up in double digits for most of us. But actually, with these clearer skies in the south, it does mean that we'll start off Sunday on a better note. A decent amount of sunshine first thing for these southern districts. The mist and fog will clear quite readily once the sun rises as well, so not too bad of a start if you're heading out early on. A few bright spells for Northern Ireland as well. Still a lot of cloud though for central northern areas of England with that drizzly outbreaks of rain. Central and western areas of Scotland actually not faring too badly, but again in the north and the east, a lot of cloud coming in with that brisk northeasterly flow down in from the North Sea. This rain will turn lighter as we head throughout the day, so generally turning a bit more patchy, but still very dull and dreary for much of southern Scotland into northern England throughout Sunday. A few showers possible elsewhere, but really holding on to a few brighter spots also. And in that brightness as well, temperatures a little up compared to where we have been today, around 20 to 23 degrees Celsius for central Scotland, into parts of the south as well, but still very cool and disappointing in that central area. The rain will ease off as we head into Sunday evening, just in time for any outdoor viewing parties for the Euros Grand Final. And as we head into the next week, though, do be prepared for more areas of low pressure, rain and showers to start arriving. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
£30,000 in tax-free cash really could be yours. It's our biggest cash prize of the year so far, and you could be getting that winning call from us to tell you that you're our next Great British Giveaway winner.
Oh, I can't believe this.
Oh my God, this is amazing.
That is absolutely fantastic.
We're over the moon.
I've never won anything like this in my life.
Oh, you shocked me. I never won a penny in my life.
If I was there, I'd buy you a drink.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark Dolan and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome to GB News Saturday. I'm Dawn Neeson for the next hour, keeping you company on TV, online and on digital radio, keeping you up to date on the stories that really matter to you. We've got a packed hour coming up, we really have. Now, early releases under Labour as prison overcrowding is blamed for drastic measures. The Justice Secretary has announced that some prisoners, including violent ones, could be released after serving just 40% of their sentence. Are Britain's streets about to get even more unsafe? And royal return with the news that the Princess of Wales will be returning to Wimbledon for the final. And as America has once seemingly gone quiet on that Harry and Meghan situation, are we seeing a royal revival in fortunes for the family? And yeah, football, let's talk it. Gareth Southgate says his team are ready to make history after reaching the final of Euro 2024. But can the Three Lions beat Spain tomorrow night and become European champions? But this show is nothing without you and your views. So let me know your thoughts on all the stories we're discussing today, or anything you want to chat about, basically. Your choice. Visiting gbnews.com/your say and join the conversation. Or message me on our socials, really simple, @GB News. But first, it's time for the news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Dawn, thank you. Good afternoon. It's just gone 2 o'clock. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB newsroom. Your top story this hour. A 34-year-old man has been arrested in connection with the investigation into human remains found in 2 suitcases near Clifton Suspension Bridge. Armed police detained the man at Bristol Templemead station and he'll be taken to London for questioning later. There had been a manhunt in the wake of the discovery of body parts, but police are now not looking for anyone else in connection with the incident. Investigators believe the remains found at an address in Shepherd's Bush are linked to those found in 2 suitcases in Bristol on Wednesday. The family of 3 women who were killed in a crossbow attack in Hertfordshire this week have said they are devastated. John Hunt and his daughter Amy issued a statement after the murders of 61-year-old Carol Hunt and her 2 daughters, 25-year-old Louise and Hannah, who's 28, who were attacked at their home in Bushey. It comes as a 26-year-old man has now been arrested on suspicion of the murders. An Israeli airstrike has targeted the mastermind behind the 7th of October attack. That's according to a security official. The health ministry in Gaza says at least 71 Palestinians have been killed in a strike on a designated humanitarian area. But Israeli officials say the strike targeted the head of Hamas's military wing in an open area where there were only Hamas terrorists and no civilians. In the US, President Joe Biden has confirmed he is going to stay as a Democratic candidate for the upcoming election. It comes as top Democratic donors have threatened to withhold around £70 million of campaign funds if Joe Biden isn't replaced as candidate after more blunders at the NATO summit. Speaking at a campaign rally in Detroit, Biden told his supporters that not only will he run, but he will also win the presidency once again.
You probably noticed there's a lot of speculation lately. What's Joe Biden going to do? Is he going to stay in the race? Is he going to drop out? Here's my answer. I am running and we're going to win. I'm not going to change that.
But Professor of US Politics Scott Lucas has told GB News most Democrats want Biden to step down.
Some Democrat donors have already said they will not provide money to the campaign until the situation is resolved. In other words, until Biden steps down. You've mentioned those that have now said that they are planning to do so, but the Democrats are already losing some funds. And I think what you're going to see this weekend is, there's going to be a review by those high up in the Democratic Party of where they are in the financial situation. They're going to review the polling, which actually shows that Biden and Trump are still running neck to neck, but that a majority of Democrats do want Biden to step aside, and they're going to look at Biden's performance.
Alec Baldwin's manslaughter case has been dismissed by a judge nearly 3 years on from the death of Helena Hutchins on the set of the Western film Rust in New Mexico. The cinematographer Helena was shot with a revolver that Mr. Baldwin was using in rehearsals in 2021. The trial collapsed 3 days into Baldwin's trial in Santa Fe. It is the second time the case against the actor has been dismissed, and he will not be tried again. The US actor broke down in tears as the judge dismissed the involuntary manslaughter case against him.
The sanction of dismissal is the only warranted remedy. The jury has been sworn, jeopardy has attached, and a mistrial would not be based upon manifest necessity. Further, the sanction of dismissal is warranted in this case.
In other news, England manager Gareth Southgate has admitted he wants England to win so much on Sunday it hurts as they face Spain in the Euros 2024 showdown. They've reached the tournament's final for the second time in a row after being beaten by Italy on penalties at Wembley in 2021. Ahead of tomorrow's match, the King has asked the England squad to alleviate the blood pressure of the nation by avoiding any late drama in the final. And the Princess of Wales will attend the Wimbledon men's singles final tomorrow and present the trophy. It will be her second public appearance since her cancer diagnosis was announced earlier this year, after she attended Trooping the Colour last month. Princess Catherine has been a patron of the All England Lawn Tennis and Croquet Club since 2016. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Wensler, more in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Sophia. Now let's get straight into today's story, shall we? The government has said some violent criminals will be released from prison early in an attempt to tackle overcrowding. Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood has announced a scheme to release thousands of prisoners early to avoid a total breakdown of law and order. This comes as former Home Secretary Suella Braverman said Labour is putting the public at risk with this new scheme. Excuse me. Joining me now is a former police officer and border security expert, Henry Bolton, OBE. Henry, we've got a lot of very concerned, viewers on this subject. What do you make of what we've heard so far?
Well, sadly, I don't know that the Labour government has any choice. There is a crisis in our prison system, a crisis of overcrowding. It's a crisis that we've long known about, but the previous government did nothing about, or virtually nothing about. That said, the people who are going to be released, I understand it's going to be about 4,000 per year who will be released early. And that's to alleviate the space problem in the prisons. That has to be done because otherwise courts aren't going to be able to incarcerate people that they find guilty, because there will be no space in the prisons to jail them, because the previous government, going all the way back to David Cameron, failed to build the prisons and create the space that was required. So these 4,000 people are people who would anyway be released after 50% of their time in prison. So if they're jailed for 2 years, they'd be released after half of that, after 1 year. This is a reduction to 40%. So it's from 50% of their time down to 40%. So it's not a massive difference. But the concern here is that there is no plan that I can see that is designed to address the space problem. And we do have a Justice Minister who, although she's in a tight spot at the moment and has to respond in this way, actually has expressed the belief that we shouldn't have so many people in prisons anyway. And now, of course, all of this makes the streets less safe. But again, a crisis in our prison system that prevents the courts from jailing or sentencing people to incarceration is also a massive problem. So money and time and effort needs to be invested in the prison service immediately. Not next year, not next month, now.
Henry, this is quite clearly a sticking plaster, that a problem has been going on for a long time and won't be solved overnight. Many viewers and listeners are saying, this is Andrew, for example, Andrew Howlett saying, so the way to achieve less crime is to let thousands of reoffenders back onto the streets. How about sending some of the 10,000 foreign criminals home? That would leave plenty of spare places. Lots of people are echoing that sentiment. What do you make to that?
Me too. I mean, we're talking about 4,000 or so early releases. We've got about 10,000, 10 to 12,000, I don't know the precise figure, of foreign offenders, foreign nationals who are citizens of other countries who are presently in our prisons. And I don't see that it's rocket science for a government with the majority that the Labour government, that the Labour Party has at the moment, to pass emergency legislation enabling precisely that. That's another way of dealing with this. And as I say, I'm a little bit suspicious because we have got a Justice Minister now, Shabana Mahmood, who has stated quite clearly that she wants to see fewer people being sent to prison. So, you know, I'm a bit suspicious about this. I want to see those spaces increase, and I do want to see foreign nationals deported. Of course I do. Why are they here? You know, we've given them a visa and the right to remain in the United Kingdom. They come here, they break the law, they commit a crime for which they are incarcerated. No, send them away. And if we need to release people early, don't wait for their time in jail to finish. Get rid of them now. I agree.
Henry Bolton, very strong words indeed. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Now, let's see what my panel make of this. This hour, I'm joined by political commentator Jonathan List and GB News host of the Saturday 5, Darren Grimes. Thank you very much for joining me, Jonathan. And, Jonathan, you will have to give us a twirl at one point because you won't believe the trousers he's wearing, people. Now, back to the prison story. It's a story that's not going away. Lots and lots of people are frankly, they're worried, Jonathan. They're worried that this is going to make the streets more dangerous for people.
Well, I think the first thing to say is that the most violent offenders will not be released under this scheme.
Initially, they said there would be no violent offenders, and now we're told that's not the case.
As I understand it, it's if you have been charged or convicted of a violent offence that merited a sentence of less than 4 years, then that would make you eligible for release. So not murderers, in other words, some of the most serious violent offences, and also domestic abusers, for example, will not be eligible for obvious reasons. And so obviously, it's not in anyone's interest, let alone the Labour government's, to release people who present a clear and present danger to the public, because that will sort of blow up in their faces pretty quickly. But I think that what is really interesting about this debate, Dawn, is that a lot of Conservatives are coming out and saying this is inevitable, including Suella Braverman. Suella Braverman, she's condemned it, but she's basically laying the blame of the Conservatives, rightly. I mean, Labour has not created a problem in 1 week, not even its most strident critics would say that.
It was a Conservative policy as well.
The Conservatives did not build jails. If you have a policy of law and order, which requires people to be incarcerated, then you need to have
We have had three prisons built fairly recently, but obviously not enough.
There's not, but there's also... yeah, and also the Conservatives did release 10,000 people under this kind of scheme anyway, so it's not new. This is not new. But there is a need, and I think this is important, and probably a dividing line between the parties as well. There is a need to have a debate about how many people we do in prison, what the purpose of prison is. You know, I heard people, experts commenting, saying that we've gone from, you know, sort of greenhouses for rehabilitation to warehouses for offenders, where people are released at the end of their sentence or halfway through their sentence or whenever it may be, and they haven't had any support in that time. What's the point of it? It's not just do-gooding, virtue signalling. It's to prevent reoffending, which is in everyone's interest because we all want the streets to be safer. And you can't keep people in prison forever. Even if you wanted to, you couldn't, for the reasons that we've just been hearing about, because there isn't space for them.
What do you make to this one, Darren? I mean, we keep hearing either build more prisons and be tough on crime, tough on criminals, or be more understanding, more community help for people that are committing crimes.
Well, I mean, the point there that Henry made about Miss Mahmood, the Justice Secretary, and the Prisons Minister, Mr Timpson, are both of the view, and this is according to the Spectator magazine, that the Dutch model is one to replicate. Now, the Dutch let out about, what, 40% of offenders. Now, I imagine there are an awful lot of British people, Dawn, watching your programme right now, who are saying, well, hang on a minute, I don't remember that being in the Labour Party's manifesto, that they would let out 40% of prisoners.
To be fair, it wasn't mentioned.
And I think they'll be quite surprised to learn that. I worry about this because we already have a sort of San Franciscoization of crime in Britain, where we're seeing stores basically saying we're going to lock products up behind these sort of plastic doors that people can't access without a supervisor. We're seeing that people just do not fear the repercussions of prison or anything like that because the police simply don't investigate in some cases for certain crimes. So I think actually the deterrent effect of prison will simply wear off with these people, and they'll be even more, fearless of the repercussions that we should if a government actually says, which Blair did back in the day, that Labour's going to be tough on crime and the causes on crime. Well, right now it's going Dutch, and that means not being tough on crime and actually letting the prisoners out. I think it's a sign of weakness already, 1 week in.
I mean, I think one thing you can say about Keir Starmer is that he is, to the chagrin of much of the left, actually, he is tough on law and order. I mean, he's the former director of public prosecutions, for heaven's sake. So I think that is one area where he's not going to be a soft touch in any way. I think it's really interesting that he's appointed James Timpson as prisons minister, because this is someone who really does put great truck in rehabilitation and what happens inside.
But does that work?
Not just... Well, obviously, you have to look at the data and the evidence.
Yeah, where is the evidence that suggests it does work?
What we see at the moment, Darren, is that a lot of people are coming out, as we know, and going straight back into their old ways because they haven't had the support they need, because they're staying in Victorian prisons that were designed for sort of one person in a cell, then they have two people in a cell. There aren't enough prison probation officers around when they get out. There aren't enough prison officers in prison at the time to help them with that rehabilitation. There aren't the skills that they need to kind of actually educate themselves and equip themselves to the workforce. All of these problems that we have, even if you don't think that prisoners should have any rights, it's in everyone's interest that prisoners should have the ability to sort of go into society, because that makes streets safer for everyone.
If there was evidence that rehabilitation across the piece worked magnificently, I would say absolutely bring it on. Let's give them all kinds of lessons that you want to. In certain cases, it sounds better than most educations that kids are getting in this country today, with the size of class sizes and mass migration and all the rest of it to this country. But actually, I don't think there is that evidence that this rehabilitation idea does work. I think Timpson, frankly, whilst it's laudable to give former convicts jobs and opportunities outside of prison if they are genuinely looking to change their lives, no one, I think, we're all forgiving sinners in this world. But I don't for a second think that this sort of namby-pamby liberalism where we say to people, let's make prisons a better deal than a lot of people have in this country, is going to fly with the British people.
It's not namby-pamby at all. No one's saying that people...
They get television, they get 3 square meals a day. A lot of people are struggling.
What are we trying to achieve? I mean, television, most people in Britain have access to a television.
Most people haven't committed a crime.
What, are you seriously suggesting that prisoners should be sort of forced into solitary confinement without any books?
I think prison should be tough.
Or anything. No, that is not, how is that going to help people? Driving people into sort of catatonia is not going to assist their life chance when they get released from prison.
Well, I don't think, though, it's helping people if poor Doris down the street gets mugged as soon as someone gets out of prison, because we're saying... But there is no evidence that you can give them books and they sit there and read till their heart's content and come out after reading Dickens and suddenly, they're not going to go out and do the same thing that they've just done to end up in prison in the first place.
Education is one of the keys to rehabilitation.
Well, right. So where is the data, then, that prisoners who have gone through these steps, because there have been programmes like this throughout the world where actually Liberals have said, right, let's put in this programme of rehabilitation, give prisoners education, and they transform their lives. Some people are frankly beyond rehabilitation. I think we should focus on the people here and now who are on our streets, who are struggling. I don't think we should be focusing on people that go out there and get up to all kinds of things, whether that be knife crime or whatever else.
Are you saying that people should just be sort of kept in detention forever, even if they haven't committed sentences that would merit a whole lifetime?
Well, I certainly don't think we should be letting them out early.
But obviously, people have
that's what we're doing.
Let out early for a long time, and there aren't the space in prisons. That goes back to the beginning of this conversation. We need to address the problems that we have right now. How do we make the streets safe for everyone, and how do we give people a second chance? The two are not mutually exclusive.
No, and indeed, and if people genuinely show that they aren't going to go out there and do that again. But I'm afraid that you said it yourself. The data suggests that people do re-offend as soon as they're out.
Yeah, because the prisons are understaffed, because the government has deprived, has chronically underfunded the judicial system and the prison system and probation as well. So multiple mistakes are made. We know about the cases of people sort of being murdered and attacked by people who should not have been out on the streets, who weren't being given adequate supervision. I mean, that's not in discussion. Clearly, there are mistakes being made because the last government took its eye off the ball. So the question now is, what do we do now we have the problem? How do we actually fix it?
A lot, yeah, there are. I think everyone will agree there are all sorts of problems. How you fix it is another matter, but lots of people are saying on here, it's all very well talking about the health and care of the people that have done the crime. What about the people that are the victims of the crime? We don't seem to be talking about them too much. Not just us, but everybody out there. Right, for all the best analysis and opinion on that story and much more, please do go to our website, which is gbnews.com. I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News Saturday, and there's loads more coming up on today's show. Can the Three Lions make history and beat Spain tomorrow night and be crowned European champions? All of that and much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. Don't go too far.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Now, time for the best part of the show, Our Greatest Britain, where we share amazing people who do amazing things. And this week, that is Dr. Leo Cheng and Reverend Hilary Cheng.
Well, Dr. Chen regularly serves as a volunteer surgeon aboard the Mercy ships in West Africa and has recently served his 17th mission aboard the ships. He volunteers with his wife, Reverend Hilary Cheng, a Methodist minister in the UK.
Thank you for joining us, and what a privilege. So just briefly explain, what are Mercy ships?
Well, Mercy ships provide world-class surgery on the ship, and the ship then sail to these poorest of the poor country because there's no infrastructure to get road or rail there. And we offer free surgery and also education, training of medical staff, and partner with the local or the host nation to build up their surgical and anaesthetic services.
So how long have you been travelling West Africa? You go on all these different ships, different ports, and you treat the needy and the vulnerable. How long have you both been doing this?
20 years.
20 years?
Just over 20 years.
And you take the time to do this out of your own holiday from work. Why do you do it?
Well, because I'm indebted to the education in this country with all the qualification I get. And NHS is great. I love the NHS because without NHS, we see cases that we see in the low-income country. And I want to make use of my hand to help those people who have no way of helping themselves. Because the tumours, the deformities, not just a physical ailment, but it's being ostracised and die early, commit suicide because they've been ostracised by their family.
When you're on the ship, you are seeing the very worst that the country can offer. I find it a great privilege to work alongside these people.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Farage Nigel Paul, Reform UK. 21,225.
Believe me, folks, this is just the first step of something that is going to stun all of you.
This Tuesday at 7 p.m, welcome the return of Nigel Farage MP only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to GB News Saturday with me, Dawn Neeson, on your telly, online and on digital radio. Now, Gareth Southgate says his team are ready to make history after reaching the finals of Euro 2024. A little game going on tomorrow night. You might have heard about it. It was a stunning stoppage time goal from substitute Ollie Watkins that got us here in that victory over the Netherlands 2-1, remember. God, it feels like a lifetime ago already. Now, the Three Lions will now face Spain tomorrow night with the hope of being crowned European champions. Now, we actually have a very lucky Jack Carson who is out in Berlin for us, enjoying himself in the sunshine, and it is sunny in Berlin. Jack, how's it going out there? How's the atmosphere going?
Well, Dawn, we have found the English fans. Here we are at the Kilkenny Irish pub in Berlin. Of course, still joined with Chris Scudder, who's with me. You're, of course, a West Ham fan, Dawn. You'll see the flag with the three Bobbies, Bobby Moore, of course, being one of them. I mean, Chris, you know, England fans know about the history, of course, of England. Bobby Moore lifting the Jules Rimet, of course, back in '66. More history to be done, surely, this weekend.
Three Bobbies, there it is. Bobby Moore, Bobby Charlton, Bobby Robson. None of them with us any longer. And you'd wonder, I met and interviewed all three of those great guys, and how would they feel, I think, as England try to win that first trophy since 1966. Wonderful men all, and the England fans gathering here, it's going to get, I think, pretty messy here later on in terms of the amount of beer drunk. It's a terrific atmosphere. Fans arriving all the time. From various parts of Germany, but yeah, we're all keeping our fingers crossed that it's going to be a weekend, please, of celebration.
Listen, you can feel the anticipation. I mean, just look here, you know, we've got the flags going up, and just how are these England fans feeling? We've been speaking to a few out in Berlin earlier today.
We've waited a long time. Obviously, we got to the final last time, but this time I think we're more prepared, I think, even though we've been poor up to this stage, apart from one half that we've played really well in. And I just think they know what it's about now, and I think they'll be OK.
Can I put you to a score prediction?
Yeah, I think it'll be 2-1 England.
I'm going 3-1 England.
Yeah. I feel like Mainoo's got a really big part to play still. He's been exceptional, I think. The way he's driven us forward, and yeah, he's got a lot more to come, I think, and it'll be, yeah, hopefully a standout performer tomorrow.
Can I put you to a score prediction?
3-1 England.
3-1 England, OK. How are you feeling, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. Bit jaded, only got in this morning, but yeah, looking forward to it, you know, and that's going to build today.
When did you decide to actually come to the final then?
Well, Wednesday, really. We're at home in the UK, watching the Holland game and making plans throughout the game, and as soon as that whistle went, we were straight on booking flights. So.
I mean, that must have been a thing, because Ollie Watkins only scored as it went 90 minutes, so that must have been, you know, that feeling.
We'd done our research, we were ready to go, but what a goal. I mean, one for the ages, that one. Absolutely. Always remember that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you can just kind of hear, can't you, just in the voices there, that, you know, there's just this kind of anticipation, this excitement, and you can just see the fans here looking relaxed probably at the moment, probably going to be a little bit nervous come closer to kick-off. I mean, Chris, you know, it's not only, of course, on the pitch, off the pitch, it's going to be a bit of a star-studded crowd, isn't there?
I think we're reckoning about 50,000 England fans here. 20,000 of those will be in the fan zones, not at the game. The rest will be inside cheering on the boys. And you know what? We got a message from the FA President, Prince William, the Princess and Prince of Wales. This is a tweet from them today. We are so proud of you all, England. Just one last push, he says, to finish the job. Go out there and show the world what you're made of. We believe, we certainly do. So do these guys here, and we're all hoping it's coming home tomorrow.
This is it. Chance for history to be made once again in Berlin. Can England do it? Can it come home, Dawn? Fingers crossed, like Chris.
I'm going to jinx it if I say so, but I'm enjoying the Bobby West Ham flag, so thank you for that. Jack Carson in Berlin, thank you very much. Now I think it's the time you go and climb on someone's shoulders like you did the other day. I can never unsee that. Jack Carson, thank you very much, joining us live in Berlin. Now, we are going to talk to reporter Anna Riley, who has been with some youngsters. We're getting inspired by England's, some of the very young footballers we have playing for us this tournament. Anna, what have you been up to?
Good afternoon, Dawn. I'm here in Hull. I've been at the Pelican Park Community Trust. It's a sports venue and a charity for all ages, but this morning it was all about the football. A lot of youngsters from tiny little tots to 4-year-olds all the way up to 14-year-olds coming here to play the game. And speaking to them, they are absolutely ecstatic about England being in the finals against Spain tomorrow. Football fever is truly in the air, and they've said how watching England in the Euros has truly inspired their game. And speaking to coaches and staff as well from the Community Trust, they've said they've had a real uptake in numbers of young people wanting to come along and play football, and they think that's been inspired by the Euros as well. Let's take a listen to what some of the children told me earlier.
I think they're going to beat Spain 2-1. So it's going to be quite a tight game.
Yamal is a really talented young lad. He's really good. So I think he's going to pose some really difficult situations for us, but I think we can get there if we try our hardest.
It's been a while since we've won the Euros, and it'd just be really exciting that we can beat Spain.
I feel it's going to be hard, but I think it's coming home.
It's coming home!
So they say it's coming home. Could it be coming home, Dawn? Well, fingers crossed for England tomorrow in that match, but certainly so much inspiration for young people here getting into football, getting into sport, and also looking up to these football players as role models as well. So fingers crossed for tomorrow, it's coming home.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Anna Riley, with some lovely youngsters there who are inspired by some of our very young players, and obviously Spain's youngest player is only 17 himself. Now, we are going to, I think we have another reporter in a pub. This is Will Hollis this time. Will, really go above and beyond for your job today in a pub in Cambridgeshire, talking to England fans. What's it like where you are?
Dawn, well, there are only 3 places that you can watch the Euros: by heading over to Berlin, sitting at home in a stuffing living room, or coming out to the local pub. And we know that pubs like the Swan here in Mansfield have had a massive boost because of the Euros. 1,200 people have been fitting into their car park to watch it on a giant projector. And we know that these fan zones have been influential around the country in putting money behind the bar. £120 million is what's expected to be pumped into the UK hospitality industry just from this final alone. So lots of people coming out to places like this to spend a little bit of the money that they were saving. But big games mean big, expensive bills behind the bar. So lots of money is being put into the industry, and I know that that's going to be something that's really appreciated for places, pubs, where it's been a desperate few years. So right now, people are having a quiet drink, we'll say, but they are wearing their England shirts already. The flags are up, as you can probably tell behind me. And England really have to finish the job now, 500 miles away in Berlin.
No pressure at all. Will Hollis, thank you very much for joining us there, live from a pub. I remember doing those jobs. They were always the most fun, weren't they? Will, thank you very much. And indeed, it's a £2.4 billion boost for the UK economy. And that's win or lose, I think. We're just going to hit the booze. Right, now, let's see what my panel make of this one. I mean, Jonathan and Darren. Who wants to go? Darren, you're a big football fan, aren't you?
I am.
Looking forward to it? Are you going to be...
Do you know what? I'm quite angry with Gareth Southgate, and I'm angry because he's given me such hope and optimism again. I started off by being very critical by saying, why did we not get rid of Southgate ages ago? I think this entire tournament has been a complete disaster. And after watching the game on Thursday, I thought, oh no, there's that hope. There's that optimism.
That's the killer, isn't it?
It's the hope that gets you.
Yeah,
it really is. I mean, you're a West Ham fan, I'm a Newcastle United fan. We know a thing or two about hope. And I really do feel that hope, though, Dawn. But I'm just trying to keep my sort of rose-tinted glasses at bay, and all we can do is hope for the best, ultimately.
Realistic. Jonathan, are you looking forward to it?
Absolutely. And I had the best encounter during the semi-final because I was at the Killers concert at the 80th.
Oh, yes.
Oh, God, that sounded amazing,
and they just interrupted the concert and played the final few minutes. And there was this sort of sense of you could hear the murmuring in the crowd.
Yeah.
And then the final whistle blew and the whole crowd erupted and the red and white confetti kind of burst out. It couldn't have been better.
Yeah.
And then they segued immediately into Mr. Brightside. So 20,000 people going absolutely bonkers. So that was incredible. So I think the only thing that could possibly match that would be England, and obviously England winning in the most ludicrous, dramatic way possible, so like sort of equalising in sort of like the 91st minute and then scoring again.
I think that the very last seconds would be good for me, because otherwise you just can't cope, can you?
I'm with the king on this. We need to keep the country's blood pressure, you know, at a sort of...
It will probably go to penalties, let's
Oh, no.
Look at them now. We've got great young players who can take penalties.
Yeah, fair enough. We've won.
Let's not jinx it by saying that, Dawn.
I know. This is the thing, isn't it? You feel just by being slightly positive and jinxing it. However, the women have done it, so I don't understand why the men can't follow suit.
Really?
So all over to you, boys, no pressure. Right, well, I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News Saturday, and there's lots more coming up on today's show. Now, talking of festivals and music, as Jonathan was just now, we are asking, is festival costumes, or are festival costumes, cultural appropriation? But first, let's get the news headlines with Sophia.
Dawn, thank you. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB newsroom. Your headlines just after 2:30. A 34-year-old man has now been arrested in connection with the investigation into human remains found in 2 suitcases near Clifton Suspension Bridge. Armed police detained the man at Bristol Templemead Station and he'll be taken to London for questioning. There had been a manhunt in the wake of the discovery of body parts, but police are now not looking for anyone else in connection with the incident. Investigators believe the remains found at an address in Shepherd's Bush are linked to those found in 2 suitcases in Bristol on Wednesday. The family of 3 women who were killed in a crossbow attack in Hertfordshire this week say they're devastated. John Hunt and his daughter Amy issued a statement after the murders of 61-year-old Carol Hunt and her 2 daughters, 25-year-old Louise and Hannah, who's 28, who were all attacked at their home in Bushey. It comes as a 26-year-old man has now been arrested on suspicion of the murders. An Israeli airstrike has targeted the mastermind behind the 7th of October attack. That's according to a security official. The health ministry in Gaza says at least 71 Palestinians have been killed in the strike on a designated humanitarian area. But an Israeli official said the strike targeted the head of Hamas's military wing in an open area where there were only Hamas terrorists and no civilians. And the Prince of Wales has said he is so proud of England ahead of the Euros 2024 final against Spain tomorrow. They've reached the tournament's final for the 2nd time in a row after being beaten by Italy on penalties at Wembley in 2021. Ahead of tomorrow's match, Prince William added, "Go out there and show the world what you're made of. We believe." Those are the GB News headlines for now. I'm Sophia Wensler. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Sophia. Now, there's loads more coming up on today's show. But before I tell you what we've got lined up for you, Nana is here to tell us what is on her show coming up soon. Nana.
Well, we have a round-table discussion of all the first week of the Labour government. What do we think of it? You had Rachel Reeves at the beginning of it talking about YIMBYs, yes, in my backyard, and by the end of it we realised that a lot of them were actually NIMBYs. So we're going to be talking about all of that kind of stuff too. So we're going to have a good look at Labour's first week, main first week in office. Plus, I've got some these 3 girls that go by the name of Charlie's Angels, and they are actually private investigators. So for my 5 o'clock guests, we're going to find out how that works on some of their most notorious cases. Plus, I'm asking, is Joe Biden, is he really fit for your office? I mean, we saw the last things that happened there. Is he a risk to global security now after he mistook Vladimir Putin, Zelensky, that awful mess up and all the other stuff that's gone on just over the last few days? You know, all that kind of stuff and loads more. So stay tuned. It's going to be a very busy show. I've got some great guests and hopefully we can keep you entertained until 6.
Always doing them. It sounds like an absolutely cracking show. And Nana's on at 3 o'clock. You don't want to miss it. Now, remember, let us know your thoughts on all the stories we'll be discussing today by visiting gbnews.com/your say and join the conversation. Or message us on our socials at GB News. All of that and there's much more to come. I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. Don't go too far.
Hello there, welcome to your GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. Quite a mixed picture on the cards in terms of our weather this weekend, disappointing for some of us, but a few brighter spells possible, particularly further towards the west where we do have high pressure, keeping things a touch more settled. But for those in the east, it is low pressure in the North Sea that is providing more unsettled conditions. A lot of cloud coming in with this, outbreaks of rain and drizzle, a very dull, damp and dreary Saturday for many of us here. Those brighter spells possible further towards the west, but sunshine still really at a premium for many of us, and that is going to factor in with the temperatures. Very disappointing. 13, 14 degrees Celsius for some of us is well below where we normally expect to be for the middle of July. Might just scrape 19 or 20 degrees across areas of the south and southwest. That area of cloud and rain is going to be quite persistent. Eastern areas of Scotland, very cloudy throughout Saturday, but further towards the Highlands, parts of Argyll and Bute again, seeing the best of some of that sunshine in there. A few showers possible with those bright spells for Northern Ireland. They could be on the sharp side around at times, and as well a few showers also possible for Wales, parts of southern England, perhaps the odd rumble of thunder around in there as well. Those showers tending to ease off as we head into this evening and overnight. And actually for southern areas of Wales and England, the cloud will break up a bit more as well. A few mist and fog patches possible here, but it is going to remain very cloudy, damp and soggy for northern areas of England, southern Scotland, with that rain really persisting, turning heavy at times, maybe some localised flooding issues in one or two places. That cloud, though, will help hold the temperatures up. Most of us in double-digit figures overnight, might just drop into single figures in some rural spots underneath those clearer skies in the south. And it is here that we'll have the best of the sunshine first thing on Sunday. Not too bad of a start before some of that cloud builds in again, and not too bad in the way of sunshine as well for parts of central Scotland, again, that sort of Argyll and Bute Highlands area. But the central swathe of the UK is going to see persistent cloud and rain throughout all of Sunday as well. Disappointing once again, unfortunately. Bye-bye.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes. Thank you for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Hey! I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Isabel Webster. Thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GB News Saturday with me, Dawn Neeson, on your TV, online and on digital radio. Now, a massive music festival has banned clothing that promotes cultural appropriation. Wireless festival organisers have banned dozens of items from this year's 3-day event in Finsbury Park, which is happening this weekend. Started yesterday, indeed. However, a lack of clear guidance has made it unclear whether it will affect popular items such as sombreros or even ponchos. And let's face it, rain ponchos in the Great British Summer are quite necessary, aren't they? Let's see what my panel make. Who's getting down with the kids and going to festivals these days? Jonathan, you've got the trousers on. Let's come to you.
I was at Glastonbury 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
I'm going to Hyde Park after this.
Did you wear a poncho?
Really? No, we had good weather actually. It was lucky.
Yeah, you were the one place in the country that had good weather then, by the way. But I mean, this is just a bit the fun piece, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that I may actually be in the rare position of being in agreement with most of your viewers on this particular one, in the sense that...
Steady on, Jonathan.
Well, they normally don't agree with me, so I don't think that's anything controversial. But in general, I don't really like banning things. I think that unless you are turning up wearing overtly racist, sexist, homophobic clothing, unless you are obviously committing gross offence to people, if you are wearing costumes in a way that is designed to provoke people, not to be friendly or to kind of have fun or to pay tribute, but to kind of mock people, you know, in a way like blackface, for example, that I would suggest would not be appropriate.
What about dreadlocks? That's often the one that people come down with, that white people can't have dreadlocks.
I think that, look, let's just separate the two things out. I think that we have to separate out the banning things, which I don't think is appropriate and is something a good idea. Often you will go to an event like this and you'll see someone who's looking like a pillock and you will laugh about them with your friends, and that's the end to it, because people have a right to be pillocks, and also, of course, people have the right to wear things that other people may find offensive. But as always, it's a case-by-case basis, and at what point does something cross the line? Dreadlocks, look, it's a very, very complicated issue. I'm obviously not a black person myself. I know that there are a lot of black people who have very, very strong views about this, and there are other people who take the view that you know, if you have something in your culture and other people want to kind of experiment with it and do it themselves, that's something that they see as something that could almost be a tribute or something that can become universal. It's a very much a personal thing, and it's, you know, something that I did a lot of studying about, actually, because I did a master's degree in social sciences and we did a lot of this kind of stuff. So I kind of thought a lot about this over the years, and it's a really, really complicated issue because you have a long history of obviously mocking cultures and kind of asserting kind of supremacy over different cultures, and also of kind of cultures sort of interacting with each other and sort of percolating, cross-fertilising, and sort of becoming different things. I think a lot of people, for example, in religions, would find it offensive if other people take religious items that have quite a specific sacred value and use them as kind of cultural accoutrements or fashion accessories. Do I think they should be banned? That's a separate issue.
Well, the crucifix is almost a fashion statement now. People wear crosses and crucifixes as a fashion item. There's a whole trend going on social media. And Justin Welby did actually complain about that. It's a religious thing. You shouldn't just be wearing it because you think it's a nice pattern.
I don't think people... I mean, are people wearing crucifixes who aren't actually Christians?
Yeah, evidently it was a trend going on, that TikTok, which you're familiar with, probably. What do you make of this one, Darren?
Look, I think the whole thing is sort of symptomatic, really, of a culture and a society that has just gone way off its rocker. I think, like, there are more important things that we should be focusing on as a society, as we've got serious issues in this country. Frankly, I don't think we've got time to be worrying about whether or not someone's wearing a sombrero. I think if you were to poll people in wherever around the world who might be familiar with a sombrero, whether or not actually they're offended by a couple of people at a wireless festival wearing one, if that's really ruined their day, I imagine the answer would be an emphatic no, and they'd be asking you what wireless festival is and why they should give a rat's bottom. So I find the whole thing ludicrous. I think on those points about, you know, whether... I remember there was this whole furore when Justin Bieber had dreadlocks done, and they were calling him all kinds of things and all kinds of racist and all these other words. Well, you know, if I saw a black woman who had keratin treatment to straighten her hair, I wouldn't say, what a racist thing to do. I just feel like there is this... One, there's a massive double standard, but also I just don't think these things are racist. I was brought up, Dawn, I don't know about you, with the line, imitation is the greatest form of flattery. I don't think it is an overtly racist act to do something that is, I guess, stereotypical or the norm with a certain group of people, unless you are doing it to, I don't know, do a little Britney sketch.
But that's exactly what I was just saying, that it really depends on your intention while you're doing it. I think that, as with all these things, you have a reasonable person test. Would a reasonable person think that this was grossly offensive, that it was designed to harass or provoke or intimidate people. You know, at these festivals, it tends to be a kind of a younger, progressive crowd. That seems unlikely in the main. Are there some people who might be offended? Again, that's a case-by-case basis. Should those views be taken into consideration? Yes, of course. I think there is a difference between, you know, as I was saying, sort of religious artefacts that are being appropriated in the way that sort of a lot of Christians would be offended by crucifixes being used by people who aren't Christian.
Well, hang on, because this isn't... I mean, Dawn, you are a big music fan. How many times have you seen rockers and all the rest of it with crucifixes and sort of cosplaying on Christianity? Right, of course it's offensive to some Christians, but of course we shouldn't ban it, you know, these...
And unfortunately, I'm going to have to ban you both talking. Sorry, because we've run out of time on that one. Could have talked about the whole time. Right, I'm Dawn Newsom, this is GB News Saturday, and there's lots more coming up on today's show. As we talk, Kate's Wimbledon return, all of that and much more coming up. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. Don't go too far.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Meghan Markle has reportedly finished filming her new show for Netflix. It aims to celebrate the joys of cooking, gardening, entertaining and friendship.
Yeah, this comes after Prince Harry's Netflix documentary, The Heart of Invictus, failed to hit the right note with viewers missing out on the top 10 in the streaming charts.
So, will this next venture be a success? Well, joining us now is royal commentator Kinsey Schofield.
I know I've talked to the both of you about Meghan Markle potentially running for president, so this feels like a bit of a dud to go from Meghan Markle running for president to Meghan Markle's Netflix series about friendship and cooking. So she's wrapped this recent show. They rented a home near hers in Montecito, so that as their cooking set. And they're saying that this is really make or break for Harry and Meghan when it comes to their Netflix contract.
You think, Kinsey, it's fair to say that Meghan Markle has proved to be commercially a bit of a damp squib? Even in America, her native homeland, she's kind of Oprah without the audience when it comes to the cooking. Also, is she kind of, do you think... They saw her as the golden ticket, didn't they, to unlimited revenue, unlimited audiences, and it just hasn't happened.
Look, I think Meghan is a beautiful woman, and I do think she's talented, but I think how you treat people is incredibly important. And not only was she rumored to have been cruel inside Kensington Palace with several bullying allegations, but here in the States, Archwell Productions, their audio section, their scripted section, they've gone through several employees. And I think it's a reflection on the way that people are treated there. And I think as a viewer, you might get that. You might feel that way. And maybe that is where the appeal has been lost.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Ellie Costello, and thank you so much for joining us here on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's showbiz time, and joining me now is commentator Daniel Mason to tell us all about what's really happening. The biggest celebrity thing for me is Kate being back at Wimbledon.
Yeah, so it got announced today that Kate is going to be at Wimbledon tomorrow, which will be one of her first outings. I know that she went to the Troop in Colour event, but she's been out of the media everywhere for the last 5 months. So whoever wins the men's finals tomorrow, we've got Novak Djokovic and Carlos Alcaraz, very hard names to pronounce.
Tell me about it.
So she will be giving one of them the winner's trophy for the men's singles. So we look forward to seeing her again. A a couple of other people have been at Wimbledon this week. Margot Robbie, Sienna Miller, and
Margot Robbie, she's pregnant.
Yeah, she's
Barbie's
pregnant. Barbie is pregnant.
How did that happen? I didn't think Ken had any... Oh, don't go there.
Yeah, so, so they've been there. And Pippa Middleton as well, yesterday was there. So it's great to have Princess Catherine back.
No, it's good. And it could be a feel-good fact today. We've got Kate back at Wimbledon, which is feel-good, and hopefully England will win the little football tournament that's going on tomorrow night.
Yes.
But there's also developments on Strictly Come Dancing.
Yes, so there seems to be so much scandal going on at the moment with Strictly. We've got... one of the pro dancers has been sacked, which the BBC have confirmed. Graziano De Prima. Did I pronounce that right?
You very probably did. I've got no idea who he actually is. But, I mean, what's he been sacked for?
So he started the show back in 2018, and there's been reports from Zara McDermott that there's been some sort of misconduct going on.
Another one?
Yeah, another one, because we also had Giovanni Panisse, who's had complaints about him from Amanda Abington and Laura Whitmore, which is still going on with their legal teams at the moment, which he says he can't wait to be over. But, I mean... Graziano...
Unfortunately, Daniel, we'll run out of time.
Oh, OK.
I know. So quick. I've been Dawn Neeson. It's been GB News Saturday. I'm back tomorrow, but first of all, let's get the weather with Jonathan Portree.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good afternoon. This is your latest GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. The search for summer really is on hold at the moment for many of us. Disappointing conditions this weekend. High pressure is tantalisingly close out towards the west, but it is this low pressure in the North Sea that is driving conditions for a good chunk of us today, particularly down the eastern side. Very cloudy with continuing outbreaks of rain and drizzle this afternoon, persistently turning heavy even to this evening and overnight for parts of the Scottish borders, Northumberland, down into North East Yorkshire as well. Do watch out for that. The skies will be clearing a touch more for southern areas of England and Wales. A few mist and fog patches here overnight and maybe single figures for some rural spots, but underneath the cloud elsewhere, temperatures will be holding up in double digits for most of us. But actually, with these clearer skies in the south, it does mean that we'll start off Sunday on a better note. A decent amount of sunshine first thing for these southern districts. The mist and fog will clear quite readily once the sun rises as well, so not too bad of a start if you're heading out early on. A few bright spells for Northern Ireland as well. Still a lot of cloud though for central northern areas of England with that drizzly outbreaks of rain. Central and western areas of Scotland actually not faring too badly, but again in the north and the east, a lot of cloud coming in with that brisk northeasterly flow down in from the North Sea. This rain will turn lighter as we head throughout the day, so generally turning a bit more patchy, but still very dull and dreary for much of southern Scotland into northern England throughout Sunday. A few showers possible elsewhere, but really holding on to a few brighter spots also. And in that brightness as well, temperatures a little up compared to where we have been today, around 20 to 23 degrees Celsius for central Scotland, into parts of the south as well, but still very cool and disappointing in that central area. The rain will ease off as we head into Sunday evening, just in time for any outdoor viewing parties for the Euros Grand Final. And as we head into the next week, though, do be prepared for more areas of low pressure, rain and showers to start arriving. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's our summer treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest cash prize of the year so far. With an extra £30,000 in your bank account this year, you could take the ultimate financial holiday and send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could get you those nagging home improvements done, buy that brand new car, or just enable you to kick back and relax for the rest of the year. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes, she could have said storm. You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.